As is our tradition, we're going to start with something very special. And since the last time we met, our town lost someone very special. Timothy J. McDonough exemplified the best of public service, from being elected to the school committee while still in high school, to serving as president of Circle of Hope, to working as the town assessor. To quote the general manager, Tim's love for Norwood and his unwavering commitment to this community shone through every day of his many decades of service. He was a kind soul with a genuine heart, someone who cared deeply about people and always went out of his way to make our days brighter. To honor and remember Tim, I'd like to ask District 4 Town Meeting member Patrick McDonough to come to the front podium, actually right over there, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Can town meeting members please, right up front, please rise. And please remain standing after the pledge for a moment of silent reflection and prayer.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you, Patrick. I know Dad would be very proud to have seen you do that. All right, before we proceed, I would like to ask all members who have not been sworn in by the town clerk to rise and be sworn in by the town clerk. So if you haven't been sworn in yet, please rise and the town clerk will swear you in. Thank you. All right, Congressman Lynch, you just sat down and I'm going to ask you to get up. We're again honored to have Congressman Lynch joining us for a little bit tonight. He's got a very, very busy schedule. We know with town meeting sessions and everything that's going on the Hill. He promised that he'd give us a little bit of an update, and I think he'll probably also mention Norwood Hospital as well. Yeah. So, Congressman Lynch, thank you for being here, and you have the floor.
Thank you. Jerry, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Appreciate your kindness and your courtesy. And I know you have a special town meeting and a regular town meeting, so I'll try to be quick. But I do want to just mention right off the top a quick update on what's happening in Washington and how what we're doing there actually affects Norwood. I'm very proud to say that in our work with our town manager and the Board of Selectmen and our state delegation, we have been successful in bringing back $8.7 million in American Rescue Plan funding on behalf of the town of Norwood. Most of that money has been spent towards making sure that what happened back in 2020 with the flood at Norwood Hospital doesn't happen again. So that involves a lot of infrastructure. We're doing right now, the money was spent on drainage improvements on Dean Street, the Robinwood Road project. There's a Westover Parkway culvert. This doesn't sound exciting, but it's expensive. Near the Willett School, all designed to make sure that, again, what happened on June 28, 2020 doesn't happen again. And every dollar that we get from the federal government to pay for that is one less dollar we have to take from the town taxpayers as well. So it's good in several respects. There's also a $500,000 targeted federal appropriation that was secured for the Meadowbrook Drainage Project, and we're still working to get those funds released, but they have been approved, and we'll stay on that. Now, on Norwood Hospital, I know this is what a lot of people are concerned about. Here's the thing. We are still trying to get the property underneath the hospital that the hospital sits on away from Medical Properties Trust. So when I say they, Stewart Healthcare sold the property, as you probably know, underneath the hospital to a private equity firm. And they were taking rent payments from the hospital. That was their profit motive. So I'm proud to say that John Rogers and we've been in negotiations back and forth with them for a while, but they weren't really motivated. So Representative John Rogers and Senator Mike Rush actually introduced legislation, I would say about 2 months ago, to take the property back away from Medical Properties Trust to allow us to go forward with completing the construction of the hospital. I testified. We had a whole delegation. I think Amanda was there, Mike Sad, most of the Board of Selectmen, all of the Board of Selectmen was there. Senator Rush and I and Representative Rogers all testified. It moved right through committee, and so now we're waiting for the next phase of that over in the Senate to succeed. But that will allow the property to come back to the state and to the town so that we can actually work with some of the bidders who would like to come in there, finish construction, and actually open it up as a fully functioning acute care hospital such as it was before. We did have interest from about 8 different entities, hospital networks, that were interested in coming in. Not all of them wanted to open a full spectrum acute care hospital like was there before. So those that didn't want to do a full hospital, they wanted to do obstetrics, but they didn't want to do emergency room. They didn't want to do cardiac, things like that. Those bidders or interested parties have kind of fallen off, and the last few that are interested are actually interested in opening up something like we had with the original Norwood Hospital. So that's where we stand right now. We've got to get that property back. It's only about 25% constructed, even though it looks like it's got a lot going on. It's only the shell of the building that's been completed, so it's about 25% complete. We still have a lot of work to do on the inside in order to get relicensed as a fully functioning acute care hospital. So that battle goes on, but I do appreciate we've had a strong level of support from the town and also from our elected officials here locally to champion that fight. The other thing on this is that in my district, because of the disaster that was Stewart Healthcare, I've lost Kearney Hospital, closed, Quincy Hospital. These are all hospitals that were owned by Stewart Healthcare. Stewart Healthcare had Quincy Hospital, that's closed. We lost about 260 beds. We lost the Kearney Hospital, was almost 300 beds. Neshoba Valley, not in my district, but Stewart owned that as well. That has closed. What has happened because of the collapse of Stewart Healthcare, there are a lot of people going to these different hospitals, and now there's what they call boarding. Boarding is going on at all these hospitals. Boarding is when they take you to the hospital, you should be admitted, but there's no bed available for you. So the reopening, the reconstruction and reopening and relicensing of Norwood Hospital is not just good for Norwood and Walpole and the towns surrounding Norwood. It's also good for the wider region because we're having boarding problems at Mass General Brigham as well as South Shore Hospital and the hospitals in Brockton as well. So it's something that it's not just something we want, it's something we desperately need in this area. We need to add those beds back to the hospital system, not only for the people of Norwood, but from the people from all the towns around Norwood as well. So we're working on that as well. Again, I'm grateful to the work of Senator Rush and Representative Rogers in leading the fight up at the State House, and I have great confidence that eventually we'll be successful up there. One of the other issues that we just had, we finished up on in Washington, D.C., there was a new rule issued by the VA that any veteran who was injured and had a disability rating would be, their disability rating would be reassessed based on whether or not there was some type of medication that gave them greater mobility. So it had the potential to lower the VA disability benefits. We were able to beat that back. What they were going to do is, for instance, if we had somebody with traumatic brain injury, but there was a medication that allowed them to function better, then they would penalize them, basically, with their disability benefits and say that because of this medication, they weren't as disabled as they were originally determined to be. So in my own estimate, we should always measure the disability of a veteran based on how capable they were when they went into the service and when they come home, and not just because there's a medication out there that might help one of our veterans. That's not sufficient reason to lower their disability benefits. So that was pushed back on, and they've abandoned that it was called the medication rule, and so the disability benefits will remain what they were previously. Lastly, we've got, well, not lastly, but we did approve the funding for the Department of Homeland Security, which included U.S. Coast Guard, FEMA, but not for ICE. There's still a problem about the masking of the ICE agents, so that funding was not approved. But importantly for our area, Congress approved $265 million for security because we're going to have 3 million foreign visitors attending these games. There are 7 games up at Gillette Stadium, and we just wanted to make sure that FIFA pays their fair share. So we've been working with the Board of Selectmen in Foxborough as well as Walpole to make sure that the local taxpayers are not forced to pay for any part of that security. That should be funded by FIFA or by the federal part that was funded through the Department of Homeland Security. You know, one of the greatest honors I have as a member of Congress, especially your representative in Congress, is nominating our young people, especially from Norwood, to our nation's service academies. And Norwood has a long and strong tradition of sending outstanding young men and women to our military academies. I'm happy to announce that I was able to nominate Alexander Dunston, who was appointed to the United States Naval Academy class of 2028, where he is now finishing up as a third-class midshipman. That's his sophomore year. His parents, Tracy and David McEachern, and Robert and Michelle Dunston, should be extremely proud, as should the whole town of Norwood. And importantly, Alexander Dunston follows really a list of past Academy attendees, including Isabella Aspinwall, United States Naval Academy. She was Norwood High School kid. John Brooks, West Point, parents of Kim and Tim, who outstanding Americans and following in his father's footsteps. Joe Ionisi, United States Military Academy. He actually went to Zavarian Brothers High School, but a Norwood kid. Joe Gallo, United States Military Academy at West Point, attended Norwood High School. Joe Carroll, these are all kids that I've appointed in the past. The son of Dan and Maureen Carroll. He's a Norwood High School kid. Trevor Kenny, United States Military Academy at West Point. Parents of John and Janet, another Norwood High School kid. And Dan Henry, when I first got elected, the very first kid from Norwood I was able to appoint. His parents are Maria and Robert, another Norwood. I met him. He was a catcher for the Norwood High School baseball team when I first met him. But you've got a great tradition here of military service on behalf of our country, and you should all be very, very proud of all those young people that I just mentioned. In closing, our third president, Thomas Jefferson, in 1816, called the New England Town Meeting, the wisest invention ever devised by the wit of man for the perfect exercise of self-government and for its preservation. So what you do here tonight is vital for our communities. It's the honor of my life to represent the town of Norwood in the United States Congress. May God bless you all, and Godspeed in these two town meetings that you're having tonight, and may God bless our troops, and may God continue to bless these United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Lynch. Thank you for those inspiring words. All right, again, we're going to be utilizing electronic voting, and we continue to gather feedback as this is still fairly new. We're going to use a standard time, and I'll give a warning before the voting is closed. Each member has been assigned an individual device, and if you leave the auditorium for any reason, your electronic voting device will be collected. Please do not leave it at your seat. Do not let your seatmate vote for you. If you do not bring it with you, Team Town Clerk will ask you to go get it. They will collect it when you come out. If you don't vote, you will not appear in the vote tally up on the board, which we'll see in a second. And also, you don't get to take your clicker home with you at the end of the night. You've turned it into Team Town Clerk, which will be collecting it in the baskets right outside. So the first thing I want to do is, let's have a test question. And the question is on the Coakley Middle School. Isn't it a beautiful school? The voting is open. Yes, Mr. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Kenichi. Thank you for being diligent. It looks like you and Mr. Garrity might be making friends, and you need to switch clickers. So, Madam Clerk, I think we solved the problem. It looks like he's got married. So, thank you for pointing that out. All right. Let's open the vote. You're voting yes if you think the school is beautiful, no if you think it's not, or you can abstain with the third choice. Ten seconds. Let's close the vote. All right, 158 say yes, 12 say no, and 11 abstentions. I guess the school is beautiful. Everybody's clicker appears to have worked. Again, if you have an issue with your electronic voting device, raise your hand and we'll get to you. All right, just go over the rules very quickly for new members and also as a reminder for all our veteran town meeting members. So the first rule has already been violated. I understand we're in a new venue. What we were attempting to do is having all town meeting members sit towards the front of the hall. What we can do tonight, if you're way in the back, if you can move down a little bit. The reason for that is A, so I can see you and call on you, and B, to make sure that the electronic voting devices are working. When you come back on Thursday, if we come back on Thursday, we'll leave the first couple of rows open in the back, but we really would like to try to. We've got plenty of seats. Section over there where we're usually at there's lots of seats there with Debbie Homewood. So she's welcoming visitors. All right. So first off, just a reminder that when you address me as Madam Moderator. This is the one time a year that I actually enjoy being called a madam, so I appreciate it if you would address me in that way. All questions do go through the moderator, so even if you know specifically who you want to ask a question of, you need to go through me, ask the question through me. When you are recognized to speak, and I will recognize you, either because you're a registered speaker or because you're raising your hand and I point to you. If you're a town meeting member, you would state your district. If you're not a town meeting member, and citizens are welcome to speak on any articles, by the way, they just can't vote on them, I need you to give your name and address when you're recognized. The other thing we're going to try to do tonight is we have microphones. We have a microphone right up front here, and we have 2 microphones in the back that are stationary. If you do want to speak, please get to those microphones. That will really help speed up the process. If you can't get to a microphone, don't worry. We will get one to you. When you are registered to speak, I will actually announce the order, so you can be standing by a microphone on either side waiting to speak. All right, sponsors and proponents of an article have 10 minutes of time to speak, with subsequent speakers limited to 5 minutes each. Every speaker is entitled to a one-time extension if voted by the body. And then there is no limit on debate. You decide when debate stops, and that is by moving the question. And as a reminder, moving the question is not an automatic approval. It takes a 2/3 majority to pass. So town meeting members control the process of when a debate will stop. Motions, and this is really important because I think and rightly so, there's confusion between a town meeting and a town hall. This is a town meeting. We only discuss any business that is on the warrant. So the articles that are on the special town meeting warrant and the annual town meeting warrant. This is not a town hall where people can come and speak on any issue that may be on their mind as a citizen. And if you are registered to speak, I will call on you in the order which you were registered. So as a reminder, this meeting is being broadcast live by Norwood Community Media. Thank you, Norwood Community Media. And then also, I want to remind the body about how town meeting, and Representative Lynch talked about this a little bit, it enables us to have full and open discussions on warrant articles. But I ask that everybody respects differing viewpoints and we treat each other with dignity, not contempt. All right. So, lastly, we have both an annual and a special town meeting this evening. The annual is now open. We are actually going to temporarily recess the annual and open up the special town meeting because some of the articles that are on the special town meeting deal with articles that could affect the annual town meeting and pertain to fiscal issues in this current year. So, Mr. Lane, I think you are making a motion to adjourn the annual town meeting or recess the annual town meeting until the completion of the special town meeting. Thank you. Mr. Donnelly, you're seconding. And by voice vote, all approve, say yes. All opposed, say no. All right, motion carries. Thank you. That takes us to special town meeting, Article 1 by the FinCom with the motion. Mr. Fleming, please.
Thank you. Moved by the FinCom that the sum of $895,296 be transferred from free cash and appropriated to the following line items for fiscal 2026 expenses per the chart on the screen.
All right. And Mr. Slater, you're seconding?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming on the motion?
The Finance Commission recommends approval of this motion.
All righty. All the expenses are here. I do have 2 registered speakers on this. So, Mr. Kirker, if you can get to a mic, and Mr. Orfanos, if you can get to a mic, because you're next up. Mr. Kirker from District 8, and please identify yourself.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Jim Kirker, District 8. I'd like to make a motion for the special town meeting for the Article 1. I would like to make a motion to remove the words "or take any other action in the matter." That is my motion.
So you're looking to amend the motion, Mr. Kirker?
I am looking to amend to get rid of those words. I don't know if that would be amending it, or I
All
would
right,
say.
I've got to check with town council, because I think that negates the motion and would not be allowed. Mr. DeLuca? Actually,
I couldn't hear.
Thank you. Those words are not in the motion, Mr. Kirker.
They're in the article.
They're in the actual article.
Yes, I'm making a motion to remove those.
You can't amend the article. The article has to stand as written, as printed in the warrant, Mr. Kirker. That's against the law and against our rules. So
Okay.
unfortunately, I have to rule you out of order on that.
All right, my bad. Forget my other.
Okay.
Thank you.
And welcome to town meeting, Mr. Kirker.
Yes, I'm new at this. I'm learning. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Alfanos, could you identify yourself, please?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Greg Orfanos, District 9. What is the amount of free cash we have that's been certified?
Does the FinCom want to take that, Mr. Fleming?
Yeah, just a moment. So if you look on the pink sheets, they were handed out. There is a pink sheet for the special town meeting, and it says in the box at the bottom of the page, the amount before special town meeting, which is $15,352,594. And then it'll show, assuming all the articles are passed, how much will be used and how much is left going into the annual town meeting. The other page for the annual town meeting does the same thing. Tells you how much we have before, how much we're proposing to spend, and then how much will be left when we're done.
Thank you very much.
Anything further on the motion? Seeing none, we're going to put it to a vote. All right, I'm going to open the vote. The voting is now open. This is free cash transfer for expenses totaling $895,296. Ten seconds. Let's close the vote. All right, motion passes with 166 in favor, 13 no, and 3 abstentions. Article number 2, Mr. Fleming with the motion from the FinCom.
Okay, thank you, Madam Moderator. And just to clarify, the article is the agenda item. What I'm going to read is the actual motion, and that's what's on the screen here. Moved by the FinCom that the sum of $350,000 be transferred from free cash and appropriated for the purposes to support 2 board-certified behavior analysts, BCBA, and 1 speech and language pathologist for Norwood Public Schools in fiscal year '27.
And Mr. Slater, you're seconding? Mr. Fleming on the motion.
The Finance Commission recommends approval of this article. This is similar to what we did last year, where we have school staff that we'd like to pay for with Medicare income. So this is essentially appropriating the Medicare income to pay for the cost of the staff. This is something we're going to do again this year, and in the future we may come up with a different mechanism to do it, but we're getting experience on how much income we're getting and what the expenses are.
All right, and Mr. Kirker, you're registered on this motion as well? You're going to pass, okay. Anybody else on the motion? Can you get...
Carolyn Barrows, District 8. This actually isn't on the motion, but FinCom last year had a voting record for each of the articles. that indicated how many votes were for and how many votes were against. I'm asking if FinCom can give us or let us know if there was any disagreement as opposed to just recommends, or the tally of votes, if that's possible, for the articles for the budget.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Fleming. I think you heard that?
Yep.
Yep, thank you. Anything further? Seeing none, let's put it to a vote. And this is for $350,000 to be transferred from free cash and appropriated for 2 board-certified behavior analysis. All right, the voting is now open. Ten seconds. Let's close the vote. All right, the motion passes 151 in favor, 31 against, and 2 abstentions. That takes us to Article 3, the FinCom. Mr. Fleming with the motion.
Moved by the FinCom that the sum of $300,000 be transferred from free cash and appropriated to Norwood Hospital Task Force expenses.
And Mr. Slater, you seconded. Mr. Fleming on the motion.
Finance Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this article.
Thank you. Mr. Mizuko, I think you have something further on the motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. Just a couple of slides that there's no information, just a summary of what was presented to town meeting members. If we could cue up the first slide. No, that's the public safety. We need the, I think it was built into the slide deck for the hospital. While we're getting that up, I'll give us a cue as to where we are with the hospital. We heard from Congressman Lynch. We have Representative Rogers here. The federal, state, and local level, everyone is doing what they can do to move heaven and earth to get Norwood Hospital back. As you heard from Congressman Lynch, the number one problem we seem to be having is a property owner who refuses to negotiate over the property or seemingly sell it for a good faith purchase price. We are aware of hospital operators that have attempted to negotiate for the hospital, and to so far no avail. Our current goal from the very beginning has been the restoration of a full-service acute care hospital on the Norwood site to serve Norwood and the surrounding communities. We're all familiar that the hospital has been closed since 2020 and that it's created a major gap in healthcare in the area. The one single figure that we point to that everyone should be aware of, that we keep trying to hammer home with officials in the administration and at the federal level, is that the critical care transport time is 39 minutes. What that means is if you have a heart attack in Norwood, Westwood, Walpole, Canton, Sharon, or Dedham, you are 39 minutes from a facility that can treat you. That is unacceptable in a state like Massachusetts. It is unacceptable 10 miles from the greatest healthcare center in the world. That is the number that keeps us up at night. As I mentioned, credible hospital operators are interested and have made good faith offers. Medical Properties Trust has not agreed to sell at the price workable for an operator. We don't know why, but we're not necessarily party to those discussions because Medical Properties Trust isn't obviously letting us know what their price is. But there's 3 or 4 hospital chains in Massachusetts that could reasonably afford to purchase this property and operate a hospital there. Why Medical Properties Trust with simply 3 or 4 customers would not look to sell the property is beyond us. We can only speculate whatever reason on their financials is their reason for not wanting to let the property go. It is worth a certain dollar amount as a hospital. It is not worth that amount of money or anywhere near that amount of money as any other property. As we mentioned, the core problem we have is no control of the site. No hospital operator can bring a proposal forward to the state to even know what they'd be allowed to build without some type of control of the property. Next slide. To be clear about what this appropriation does and doesn't do, we are not taking the hospital by eminent domain at this point in time. This does not authorize that. It does not authorize us to engage in operating a hospital. I know many people have reached out to me and said, could the town operate the hospital? We operate a light department, and we operate a water sewer plant, and we operate broadband, and I appreciate the faith we have in those services. There's no world where the town would actually operate the hospital. Our goal would be, similar to a redevelopment process, to force a transaction to get a hospital operator to come in and operate the hospital. Actually buying it, building it, operating a hospital is certainly well outside our just fiscal and logistic capacity. What we're looking to do here is the technical and legal due diligence needed to be ready if we wanted to look at a possible eminent domain taking down the road. So that includes legal work to ensure full compliance with eminent domain law, to make sure we have an appraisal that is checked, that is peer checked, that we know the risks and options of that appraisal. Some of the additional studies and the technical studies needed to determine that fair value and feasibility of completing and operating a hospital, and then drafting required orders, notices, and documents so that if we wanted to come back to town meeting at a future date, should the selectmen want to go in that direction, we would be prepared to do so. The complexity of the taking is far greater than if the town were engaging in an eminent domain property, eminent domain taking of a single-family home. When we looked, if we were to look to take a single-family home, there are many comparables for what that home's value is. You could look at the home and say in Norwood, the average home price is $719,000. We could look at comparable sales. You can get easy appraisals of those properties and say, we reasonably could take the property for this amount of money. Unfortunately, hospital operations are funny economics, is the term that I would use. They are very large operations. Even a smaller regional hospital like Norwood Hospital is likely a $400, $500, $600 million annual operation. So its value as a hospital, because it's supposed to be under the statute, the fair value that a willing buyer and a willing seller, is complicated. It's further complicated that it's not a hospital. It's a shell of a building where a hospital once was. So we need to make sure we're absolutely correct in that number, or we get to a number that's as defensible as possible, and that expert counsel on this can defend that hospital. I've been asked a few times, are we sharing costs with other towns? The time it would take to try to get 6 or 8 other towns to share in these expenses would be as monumental as the hospital itself. And as has been pointed out, the hospital does pay taxes. That is something I occasionally hear. Medical Properties Trust isn't paying taxes on the building. They have continued to. Since it converted to private ownership in 2016, the town's received about $10 million in taxes. The current bill is about $1.8 million. They are current on their taxes, so they are paying their taxes to the town of Norwood. Should a nonprofit operator come in down the road, which is what we think would happen, any pilot agreement would, of course, go to the town of Norwood and not any of the surrounding towns. Next slide. So, eminent domain, state legislation, and readiness. The town has the legal authority to take the property by eminent domain for a public health purpose with just compensation and required procedures. This does not mean that will occur. This appropriation means we can make sure we get to a point where we could realistically decide if that is an option. Only if there is a willing hospital operator to step in. I want to be clear, we're not simply going to come back to town meeting in 6 months and say we have a value of the hospital, $100 million, let's take it by eminent domain and just hope for the best. We would need a legal commitment from an operator, the same way any redevelopment process works, before we would do that. We do know that a state bill is pending to allow the state to take Norwood Hospital for a new operator. We strongly support this. Representative Rogers and Senator Rush have moved heaven and earth to move that bill along, and we're hopeful that it will pass, and we want that bill to pass. But we need to make sure that the timing of the legislature's actions, should it not go forward, because while our delegation is fighting tooth and nail for Norwood Hospital, the legislature does have representatives in other districts who may have other interest in other hospital operators, and we'll talk about that. And as a result, we want to make sure we're maintaining our ability to move forward should we be able to have an operator come forward and say that they want to operate the hospital in the event that that bill does not go through. If the state acts and takes the property, much of this work will not be needed. The state, of course, has to go through their own similar process, but that's an outcome that would be welcomed. We hope that would happen. We also hope that a private sale would happen. Nothing up until the point where the town or the state take a property by eminent domain would there be a need, would there be anything preventing a private sale of the property happening between Medical Properties Trust and a hospital operator. And in fact, that's the best case scenario for everyone, but we need to make sure that we're applying all of the pressure that we can apply, and we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can do to see a return of our hospital. Final slide. So what happens if we go from here? The next steps, if this article were to pass, we would continue our outreach and formal solicitations to potential operators. If their interest is strong, we would seek some detailed proposals from operators. That would lead us to issuing an RFP for redevelopment and negotiating a development agreement that would come back to town meeting with a selected operator. That's sort of the document that would allow us to move forward. It's mirroring the way that redevelopment takes place in Massachusetts with redevelopment authorities. Any development agreement and any eminent domain taking have to come back to town meeting for explicit approval. This is not a taking at this point in time. This is simply the legal and technical due diligence. If we did ultimately engage in a taking, the purpose would be to acquire the property for public health use and then convey it under an agreement to a qualified operator to operate the hospital. This is in effect us doing the homework now so that in the fall or the winter, town meeting can make an informed decision if we're at that point with clear options and a realistic path to restoring hospital services. The one additional item that I'll mention that I briefly spoke about is, while our delegation is fighting tooth and nail for this and should be commended for their work doing this, fighting tooth and nail, and Congressman Lynch has been fighting tooth and nail for this as well, we are aware that other hospital operators have expressed concerns privately, never in public, to the administration, that they're concerned if a large operator were to come into Norwood, it would somehow impact their hospital operations. We don't buy that for a minute, but we nonetheless know that that's what's going on. We know that those conversations are out there. And certainly, if you are in their district, you as a legislature might be hearing from them their concerns that a new hospital coming in would cause concerns for either Sturdy or Brockton or some other hospital chain. As I said, we don't think that's worth the paper it's written on, but I don't think they've written it in paper. I think it's been whispered in ears, but that's one of the political challenges that we're facing behind the scenes, that while there are interested hospital operators, there are other hospital operators who candidly would benefit from a hospital not being restored in Norwood. And while that sounds awful, that's unfortunately the nature of this industry, where they are looking out for their own bottom lines. And while we continue to fight against that, it's just the unfortunate nature of where we are. So in summary, this article lets us continue moving the process forward. It's expensive and it's costly, but for a taking to take place, if one was going to, we need to make sure we have our ducks in a row and we're following a proper legal path and we have the best advice possible as to what that taking would look like and what that final cost would be. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mizuko. Okay, we have 4 registered speakers that I'm going to call on first. Mr. Kenichi, Mr. Kirker, Mr. Alfanos, and Mr. Nardelli. Can you all get to a microphone, please? Starting with Mr. Kenichi. Mr. Kirker, are you passing?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm Steve Kenichi, District 4. The town shouldn't be in the real estate business, and we shouldn't be involved in the purchase and sale of hospital property. This request couldn't come at a worse time for the town. It seems like every project that's presented at town meeting is described as the highest priority and something we simply must do. At some point, we need to step back and ask what the town can realistically afford. In addition, Norwood Hospital served and benefited many surrounding communities, not just Norwood. These communities should share in these costs. I believe the task force should first pursue regional contributions before asking Norwood taxpayers to bear the burden alone. As important as Norwood Hospital is to our community, I do not believe that this is a step the town can responsibly take right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kenichi. Mr. Alfanos.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Greg Alfanos, District 9. Those of us who have been involved with commercial real estate over many decades, we all know that eminent domain of a commercial property like this is somewhere between $3 and $6 million just to the attorneys, and then just to go to the end of this process. And then on the other side here, we have all these structural deficits that we're going to discuss on the annual. So from my point of view, I would say I'm going to vote no on this. Not that it's not worthy, but we need to worry about our own structural deficits.
All right, thank you, Mr. Alfanos. Mr. Nardelli.
Tank Nardelli, District 7. I guess all my questions have been asked, so I'll withdraw from here.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nardelli. All right, I'm now going to open the floor to hands. Sir, in the back, if you can get to a mic. And again, if you're raising your hand and you want to be recognized, I will recognize you from the mic. No problem.
Yes, Bill Costello, District 7, third generation Norwood. Years ago, the town of Norwood sold access to the hospital so the Stewart would own all the land. We gave it away for short money. If we held on to that property, this issue would not be a matter. What I'm saying now is, can we use this legally against these people that bought the land, say they deceived the town to sell those 2 pieces of property, the easements, and help us get that property? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Madam Moderator. James Stewart, District 7. So I am all for Norwood Hospital. I actually got a chance to work there, and I just think that if we're going to spend this money, we need to make sure that people are informed about what's going on. So the infrastructure that's in the ground has been exposed for years. So that's compromised. So right now, when you sell something to a company, a buyer, that's compromised, well, are they gonna have to redo it? Do we know these things? This $300,000, I mean, honestly, I think maybe people need to take a deep dive into the construction, and maybe the people that on this task force actually have to have construction background to realize what is in the building, the structure, the selling of this, because it's not going to happen in a year, 2 years. I can't give my opinion. I'm just a worker. I worked there, and everybody every day asked me when it was going to be done, what's going on, and I think we're all blind to the situation. Everybody is blind to it, because nobody truly knows the real answer. And all those pipes in the ground that have had water running through them, electrical conduits, storm drains, water, it's probably got to be ripped out. So, I mean, maybe people should look into what's going on, because do we know what's going on?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Taylor? And then Ms. Donahue? Or Ms. Donahue, do you want to go for, okay. Nope. Ms. Taylor?
We're fighting on who wants to go last. No. Jean Taylor, District 8. I personally am voting no, and I want it known that I'm voting no, because we always can't tell where we're doing the private ones. I think at this time, we have so many different things going on. We have no idea what's going to go on with that building. And in all due respect to the task force, you're doing a fantastic job. I think you should continue to do that job, but I don't think we should spend the money right now. We don't know how many ducks we have or what row they're going to go in, and I don't think we have a crystal ball to see that. I don't think we should put the money out to do that. And I just feel that we should not do it at this particular time. Our energy should go towards the state and having them take eminent domain, or for the task force to continue. It's an extremely great task force, and they have a lot of talent. I don't think we have to pay for this right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Ms. Donahue?
Thank you. Wait a sec. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Helen Donahue, District 6. Could I please ask a question? Are there members of the hospital that are also members of the trust?
Mr. Mizuko, do you want to take that?
I'm not sure I know the exact question. Members of the
Hospital, the people, the sellers,
Medical Properties Trust?
right? Are there people who are members of the sellers? Are they also members of the trust? One or two people serving on both sides?
No, are you saying a member, is anyone working for Medical Properties Trust on the hospital task force? No.
What? No. Is the answer no?
The answer is no.
So we, as town meeting members, had a lot to do with this, and we trusted them. We voted enough to give up the street, just like Mr. Costello said. And from what I understand, when the day that the storm, we had a session, a public session after that, and representatives of the hospital at that public session said to us that were there present, we'll have the emergency room open in 4 weeks. That's what they said to us. And so we're dealing here with tough people, and we have to be tough too. And in order to get done, what we need to do, unfortunately costs money. And I saw this talk around town, I don't know if it came out at any of the educational seminars or not, but about attorney's fees, $1,000 an hour and stuff like that. So when I was still on the board, some of us went over to Natick to a fundraiser for the President of the Senate, and we all paid for the tickets ourselves. And at that point, we were trying to persuade her to hear us and to help us. And we seem to be being ignored by the administration. So we gave up a public street. So we gave them an overlay district in zoning. And some of the criteria, some of the uses on the zoning were like funeral parlor, florist, restaurant. They have all kinds of uses allowed by our own zoning. So we might have to get tough. And in order to get tough, we might have to go to court. We might ask for our street back. We might ask for the dissolution of the existing overlay district. And we can't do this if we don't have the money. But what we can do, somebody else who said more towns are involved are right. What we could do this time is we could have the task force, we could suggest to the task force that they put it in their agreement with the rest of the towns that the town of Norwood get reimbursed for the $300,000 if we're successful. That might be a way to get our money back. But I'm all for saving lives, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue. Mr. Eska.
Steve Esco, District 5, through you, Madam Moderator. I just kind of curious as to who came up with the brainstorm of putting up this $300,000, and does Representative John Rogers and Senator Rush, are they behind us doing this as well?
Mr. Mizuko, do you want to take that?
Well, sure. I'll start off by saying that the group from the hospital task force that's looking at how to get a property transaction, this is where we are. They're not selling the property. They don't want to negotiate with us on the property. If we don't move forward with an eminent domain taking, it's going to sit until they decide that they want to sell it. So this is a good faith estimate of the legal expenses to get to that next phase where we could really analyze whether that's actually an option for the town. And it's the town working in parallel with the state, but we are trying to hedge our bets to make sure that if the legislature doesn't act, that we're able to move forward.
So I think the answer to the question that you asked was, Mr. Eska, was are our legislators, our state legislators behind us? I know our state legislators are behind actually trying to get the state, the Commonwealth, to take the land to take the hospital by eminent domain, which I think is the answer to the question you were asking.
That's part of it. I wanted to know if Senator Rush and John Rogers are behind the town putting this article on our special town meeting here.
Well, Representative Rogers is standing in the back of the room. So Representative Rogers, would you go to the mic and answer the question of whether or not you're behind the town putting this article forward for Mr. Eska's question?
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and through you to the august membership of Norwood Town Meeting, an institution that I was proud to be a part of from 1988 to 1992 as a Norwood Town Meeting member. To the gentleman's question, I think from District 5, no, not necessarily. My job as your state representative is to work on the state level. I respect every single voice, every single vote within this chamber, whether you vote for this motion or against it. My intent here is to answer the question, because my name came up. My focus has been on the state level, 100%, working with and respecting what goes on in my hometown, what goes on in this town meeting. My purpose for speaking now is just not to weigh in one way or the other than to give you a report on the status of legislation that I filed in January after negotiations with a major not-for-profit operator broke down when Medical Properties Trust walked away from the table after asking for a $250 million asking price, and then came back to that table and asked for $375 million. To me, that's bad faith negotiation, and then walked away. The Speaker of the House recently asked me why they would do that. Why are they playing this waiting game that our citizens can't afford to play? Because our citizens are suffering and our citizens are dying. We're not playing games. The answer to the question to the Speaker of the House, and he really wanted to know, is because this company is so large, it owns more than 360 properties worldwide in 30 other states here in the United States, and 9 different countries and 3 different continents. They can afford to wait out. We cannot. So when negotiations broke down in late 2025, I called up Senator Rush and said, it's time we file legislation to take the property by eminent domain. We filed it in January. It had a hearing. Congressman Lynch talked about that hearing. In February, it came out favorably, ought to pass. In March, it was sent to the House Ways and Means Committee. There's 35 members of that committee from all over the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I spoke with the chair. I spoke with the speaker. I spoke with the Speaker's office this morning, and that bill is expected to be reported out favorably this very week, perhaps as early as tomorrow. There will be a poll conducted to each member of the House Ways and Means Committee, and we expect each member of the House Ways and Means Committee, the very committee that has to pay for the taking.
Representative Rogers, I called on you to answer the question. I appreciate the update, but can you wrap up the update? Because I think Mr. Escow's question was answered.
I'll yield back my time, Madam Moderator.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Representative Rogers. Mr. Escow, is there a follow-up?
Yes, Madam Moderator. I'd just like to know, Representative Rogers, he's representing us at the State House. He also is a citizen here in the town of Norwood. So I'm just curious as to what the feeling or the sentiment is of us as a town spending the $300,000 on this. What is this really, how does that benefit us in the process?
Mr. Mizuko?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. It's going to position us to be able to move forward at the local level with an eminent domain taking if nobody else does. Now, if the state is able to do it, that is the best possible solution. If we say no at this point, then we're going to do no further legal analysis on that. And if we find ourselves in a couple months where the state doesn't move forward, then we're just going to be back here saying somebody has to take the property. That's really where we are. We can wait and see. That's always an option. And if we wait and see, we may be back in the fall to say that either worked and great, it's not an issue, or we can wait and see and have to come back in the fall and have lost a significant amount of time in the process. It's whether we want to position ourselves for the town to be able to do anything about it losing its hospital if we don't get any help from the federal or the state level.
Madam Moderator,
Is there another follow-up, Mr. Escow?
please, just one more.
Okay.
So if the state does their job in getting the eminent domain voted through, this $300,000, does that go back into our coffers?
Yes, anything unspent would.
Even I could have answered that for you, Mr. Escow. It does.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We'll go to Ms. Churchill and then Ms. Barrows after. Ms. Churchill?
Thank you. Rachel Churchill, District 5. I noticed that the motion is just generally for appropriation to task force expenses. I'm wondering what the current funds available to the task force are and the source of that funding.
Mr. Mizuko, you have that, please?
I do. So maybe the word expenses isn't the ideal word. It's for the legal analysis related to the taking. I don't know that we've appropriated any money for the task force. It's not necessarily expending anything outside of the operating budget. We have a website that's up that I think cost us $40, and there's a few other items. So it hasn't had any significant expenses, and I don't anticipate it having significant expenses. If we want to move this step forward, this is a lot of more resources than we could accommodate in the operating budget.
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Is there follow-up, Ms. Churchill?
Yes. There was an annotation that this would also relate to not just some of the drafting, but some of the underlying legal analysis, including appraisal. Our federal representative had mentioned that it's a shell completed at 25%. So I'm wondering what the status of construction is right now so that we don't end up spending funds on an appraisal that ultimately becomes stale if additional construction is anticipated.
Mr. Mizuko?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So the appraisal, and you'll get an appraisal and a check appraisal, will have a depreciation amount for the condition of the building. The building inspector has inspected the building throughout the entire process, so he's well aware of the condition. Task force members have been able to visit the building. We're in regular communication with Suffolk, who is the contractor building the building. So even an appraisal at, let's say that's today, in 6 months or in 12 months or 18 months, there'll be a depreciation schedule to account for any further deterioration of the structure of the building.
And clarification, Madam Moderator, is it anticipated that there would be any additional construction that would add value, or at the moment, is it just shell complete, no additional permits are anticipated at the moment?
Mr. Mizuko?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. There won't be any well, we don't think there will be any future permits. The garage construction has gone on for the last 6 months or so. So what additional work Medical Properties Trust will do is uncertain at this point until an operator comes in. My guess is they want to keep their building permit active, so they'll do the minimum amount of work to justify that they're keeping their building permit active. The whole project calls for a separate outpatient service building. Construction hasn't started on that, and no permit, I believe, has been pulled for that. Is that correct, Mr. Pelletier? Okay, so the entire permits have been issued. I don't know that there'll be future permits. There'll be future construction at whatever pace MPT is going to continue going. We're not sure. The only reason they built the garage was that's a prefab system that they'd already paid for and purchased. So it actually became cheaper to construct it than to continue to store that wherever it is you store a prefab concrete garage.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Also, I'm curious if the anticipated diligence includes environmental diligence, as the town would be included in the chain of title.
I think we're not at that stage yet. This is really getting to a verifiable appraisal and understanding how that's going to work its way through the two different eminent domain options to the town.
Madam Moderator, is it anticipated that prior to a request to take by eminent domain, that an environmental would be done? And would this $300,000 be sufficient to cover an environmental investigation?
Mr. Mizuko?
Thank you. I don't think we would do that prior. We would certainly do that at some point. I don't think we would do it prior to issuing an RFP. When we would go through an RFP process, the developer of the property would have to absorb certain liabilities. That's among them. And to be clear, I'm sure you're aware of this, but by us taking the property and working with an operator, we would be selling it to that operator. So they would absorb any liabilities that haven't already been uncovered in the current development to date.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I noted during the informational sessions that the proposed council is the same council who assisted with the condemnation of St. Elizabeth's. Is it anticipated that that council will be used both for drafting and legal investigation as well as resultant litigation following any potential condemnation proceeding?
Yes, that's the goal. That firm is known as Greenberg Traurig. They are supposedly experts in this field. They did actually, they took care of the state with the eminent domain process at St. Elizabeth's. They were actually brought in after the state, I think, maybe made a few procedural errors in the process, and Greenberg came in and brought that to a conclusion. So we had asked the state and we had asked around, and routinely they're cited as the best counsel for this.
Thank you. Madam Moderator, given the...
Ms. Churchill, do you need more time?
1 minute.
1 more minute? All right. I have a motion to give Ms. Churchill 1 more minute. Mr. Hearn, with the second from Mrs. Sullivan. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. All right, go ahead, Ms. Churchill.
Thank you. Just the last question. Given it seems like the town is looking to have a dual track with the state condemnation happening, procedures in the legislature at the same time as the town. I would feel like we would have the benefit of watching the state process go through and learn from their deliberations at the state level, who has obviously far more resources than the town. So I would ask through you 2 questions, Madam Moderator. What would be lost if we waited a few more months to let the state process fully play out, given that we're now at the almost 6-year anniversary? And if the member of the state delegation would be able to finish his report on the current status of the state of that, that legislation, please. Thank you.
Ms. Mizuko, do you want to take the first question?
Sure. I think it's time and the impact of that time and how long do we wait? To your point, has it been 6 years? Yes. It's only been about 2 years since the bankruptcy. We would be coming back at some future point in time making the same request if the legislature did not move forward. And then other than that, I think it's the messaging to Medical Properties Trust about how serious everyone is collectively about this. I acknowledge that it's not an ideal situation. It's us throwing everything on the table to see what we can do.
Okay. And Representative Rogers, can you briefly just tell us where we're at on the current status? I think you were kind of there, to be honest with you, but.
Madam Moderator, to answer your question, no, I cannot speak briefly. Just kidding. The bill is currently in the House Ways and Means Committee. Some members have asked, I know where it is in the process, but how quickly is it going through the process? And if it's okay, Madam Moderator, if I can answer that question. It's literally going at the same pace as the state budget, which is the only bill out of 7,000 that has to be enacted every year. So House Ways and Means had hearings on both bills. The state budget was sent to the Senate, the paperwork, just last week. And we hope that the bill that I filed will come out of committee favorably this week. So it's moving, in some view, at a glacial pace, but quickly in terms of legislation. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
All right, and thank you for the reference to The Devil Wears Prada as well, with the glacial pace. Ms. Barrows?
Carolyn Barrows, District 8. I apologize if I missed this, Madam Moderator, but I'm wondering if FinCom voted on this and what the vote was.
Mr. Fleming?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
FinCom voted unanimously to recommend approval.
Okay. Follow-up?
Is there a follow-up? Yep.
Yes, ma'am. I'm curious, Mr. Mizuko had stated in his last response that it would be an indefinite delay, but in the articles, it says that it would be delayed potential taking by several months. So I'm just curious about clarification on what was stated in the article versus your response.
Mr. Mizuko?
Yes, thank you. So if we don't receive an appropriation tonight, there's 2 options if we wanted to seek an appropriation. It's wait till the fall town meeting or call a town meeting. The legislative session ends, I believe, the end of July, so we wouldn't know until August whether or not the state is going to take any action. So at that point, we would then be planning for a town meeting. We're always a couple months out for planning a town meeting, and then beginning the work, which might take an additional 6 months.
Is there a follow-up, Ms. Barrows?
No, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, Jeff. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Good. What?
I'll move the question.
No, because they're speakers so you're out of order, unfortunately. All right, go ahead.
Pat Ronan, District 7. Not the first time someone tried to get me to shut up. I want to urge the town meeting to approve this because, like Mr. Mizuko said, this really is our best leverage point. It's been well documented how much Steward and this company, this investor-led company, has just held the town hostage. And all I've heard about for the last 6 years is the hospital. We got to get a hospital. We got to save the hospital. This is the town's best move. Because, no offense to the state, I mean, I believe that Representative Rogers and Senator Rush are trying their hardest, but there are a lot of other legislators that have other priorities and that represent hospitals that probably don't want this to reopen. So I think that the town, if you're going to talk about the importance of Norwood Hospital, this is about time, right? This is about putting pressure on MPT, is it MPT, to sell the property to a buyer. This is, what was the amount of time for the transport to, was it 37 minutes?
39.
39 minutes. So time is of the essence in many ways here. And I don't know, Madam Moderator, who would be good at math here? Is it the town accountant? What is $300,000, what does that come out to per taxpayer?
Mr. O'Neill, do you have the math on that? $50 per household.
Okay, so as someone who, if I have a heart attack, that would be worth it for me, the $50. So again, this is the town's best leverage point against this company that does not have any incentive to sell the property. The town should move forward, and then you have the town and the state putting pressure on this company to make a deal. Thank you.
All right, right over there.
Ariel Heyer, District 5. So if the town were to decide to pursue eminent domain after doing the diligence that we're voting on whether to pay for, how much money, just by order of magnitude, would the town then have to pay to obtain the property? I heard $100 million-ish.
Mr. Mizuko?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. That would be subject to an appraisal. It's probably in that range. But to be clear, we would only be taking the property with a development agreement that we're turning it over to an operator who's buying it from us at that rate, at that price. So we're not looking to us buy and have to pay debt service on a hospital. It would be, we are taking the hospital and turning it over to an operator who's going to pay us for that. The St. Elizabeth's deal worked much the same way with the state.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ms. Homewood, you've been waiting patiently back there. You're getting moved aside.
Debbie Homewood, District 3. $300,000, though, is a lot of money. How much is this going to cost? You don't know how much it's going to cost at the end. Where are you going to come back and ask us for more? Where are we going to get that?
Mr. Mizuko, do you want to take that?
Sure, this is the next step in the process, and there likely would be a future request for an amount of money if we were going to go forward at taking the property. So it really is us deciding, do we want to start down this path or not? Do we want to take this next step? Or do we basically throw our hands up and say, because if the legislature doesn't take the hospital, then we're just waiting until somehow a private sale comes through. And as Representative Rogers said, the numbers that they're asking for don't seem to be based in any reality, and no operator in Massachusetts could afford to pay that amount of money and make it profitable. But they're so large that it doesn't matter to them to carry that cost and just wait and write it off the books.
Madam Moderator, may I follow up?
Follow up?
We're kind of chasing our tail. However, if we spend the 300, that's not even a drop in the bucket with this kind of legal stuff. So I think that's up to us. Though we want this to go ahead, 300,000 doesn't seem reasonable.
All right, thank you, Ms.
all I got.
Homewood. Mr. Palmetier? And again, if you can't get to a microphone, raise your hand, and we'll get one to you. But in the meantime, we're lining up here. Mr. Palmetier.
Okay, Brian Palmetier, District 8. Is it fair to kind of think of this or characterize it as like a two-pronged attack? That on the one hand, we're the state and the town are both seeking to get Medical Properties Trust to take us seriously. And, we might not need to commit all of our forces in the end. But to impress upon this 300,000 at least would be an earnest money way of saying, we're committed to exploring this possibility of taking it by eminent domain. Yes, we would prefer the state do it. That's probably the better, more sensible way to do this kind of thing in terms of, the order of things. But I guess my question then is that a fair kind of characterization to think about? It's like we've got two different entities, two different, a municipality and a state that is impressing upon, Medical Properties Trust that we want this to go through.
If I was to answer it, I say yes, but I think Mr. Mizuko probably wants to answer.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for agreeing with me. All right. Ms. Eskow.
Antoinette Esco, District 5. Through you, Madam Moderator. I want Norwood Hospital as much as everyone else does. I lost all my doctors when Stewart left and this happened. However, I feel like it's David and Goliath. Medical Properties Trust, as has been repeatedly said, is so, so huge. And even on the database, when they took the property over on Norwood's database, which says they took it over June 28th, 2018, for $177,637,268. We are fighting, as said earlier, a Goliath here. And I do think this is a drop in the bucket. I feel this vote disrespects the work and the energy that everybody has put into sending emails, writing letters, making phone calls, going to the State House. This is what our legislators should be doing for us, and I want to give them the chance to see it through. If it's just a matter of waiting a few more months, I really don't see the big deal. I really don't. And if we pass this, I feel like the state will wash our hands of us. Oh, look, they'll do it themselves. Let's not pass this bill for eminent domain. This is what our legislators should be helping us do, and it's what they're trying to do. And I want to trust them and give them that support tonight. And I feel voting for this disrespects the very hard work that they've been doing for a very long time and that we asked them to do. So that's my first. And my other question is, so we're talking about taking property by eminent domain, and that would be the land and the buildings, and find a buyer that would buy it all. What's different about negotiating with Medical Properties Trust? How are we still going to get them to work with this? I'm missing a piece of the puzzle here. I don't. They're so big. How does eminent domain change that? You still need to negotiate a number. So I just don't feel like I have enough information to vote for this right now. I know a lot of people want it, but I just can't do it yet.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Eskow.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Moderator, Susan Fitzgerald, District 4. I have worked at Norwood Hospital for over 51 years, and we really need the hospital back. We really need to take this first step. If the state does it, fine, but we really need to start doing it. I mean, an example, last year, I almost died. I went to Needham to have a procedure done. They said they could do the procedure, but they could not treat it. So I had to wait for an ambulance as I was bleeding through my lungs. And I ended up with a hole in my lung and almost died. I had to wait to go into Boston. So we really need this hospital, and I can tell you it was a great hospital. So
thank you.
Please vote yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hall.
John Hall, District 6. I've been listening to people pick at various numbers up here, and I am willing to offer that the majority of people sitting in this room know more about these kind of decisions and these kind of numbers than I do. So I looked for analogies. When my dad was selling his house down in Virginia so he could move up into New England, God's country, he was not happy with the kind of numbers that the realtors were coming in with. And it came down to my sister and me trying to get him to make a decision based on what are the offers that you can expect to get. Nobody is ever going to value our house as highly as you do. And you just sort of follow that path. I've heard a lot of really good points, but I'm most moved by those people, starting with Mr. Mizuko, who always describe the pros and cons of a particular strategy or action in terms of all the things that will get swept up in that. What's the impact on our budgets now? What's the impact in 3 years or 5 years? What is the ripple effect of all that going to be? And I'm less persuaded by people who do what I do when I'm not being sane, which is to say, these are bad people. These are very bad people, and nothing matters as much as making sure that they don't win. They can't smile at us and say, we got away with this. None of us know what moves the minds of these folks. They may be crazy in the opposite direction, but it's not the right way to structure a complicated decision when you have no control or leverage on the other parties. So where I land on this is I want to vote yes because I trust the team we put together. I trust their ability to look at all the issues simultaneously and to be able to distinguish between actions that will make you feel good but won't get the job done and actions that will be disappointing because there's a bit of winning going on with the wrong people, but we got the job done, we can live with the results, and we really do need the hospital back.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Mr. Hearn.
This gentleman. I'm sorry, Madam Moderator, I thought this gentleman had stepped in.
Gentlemen, you were there first, Mr. Hearn.
Okay, thank you. David Hearn, District 4. I have a few questions, and I think several of them have been answered, but somebody had asked me this earlier today about who owns the building itself, and we heard from Mr. Lynch some reference to buying the real estate. Can Mr. Mizuko or somebody else confirm that we're talking about acquiring both the real estate, the land, and the building itself as part of this, which is a shell?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. That is correct. He did refer to the real estate, but it is the
Thank
land
you.
and the building. And as you know, Mr. Hearn, we're just looking to do the technical due diligence to possibly bring that forward in the future. This does not buy or take the land or conduct a taking.
Follow up, Mr. Hearn?
I do. I have the feeling, a couple of comments, and I have some questions too, but I have the feeling that the town administration and maybe the task force believe that the state is not going to do what is before the legislature right now. But I do wonder, and this is a question, and maybe Mr. Rogers knows the answer to this, if this is being considered by the legislature, whether to make an eminent domain taking on behalf of the Commonwealth, are they doing the same type of research and financial analysis and legal analysis that we are being asked to fund in this motion? Is that already going on with the Commonwealth so that if they did vote for this, or are they not doing that? And maybe Mr. Rogers knows what is being done in the legislature while they consider whether to do an eminent domain taking. Madam Moderator?
Yep. Representative Rogers, do you know?
The House Ways and Means Committee is the committee that's charged with that task, Mr. Hearn. And they have been looking at this bill since March 5th. And I am not aware of the inner workings of that committee. I've spoken with the chair. I do know that the bill is expected to be reported out favorably this week.
All right. Thank you, Representative Rogers. Is there a follow-up, Mr. Hearn?
I do. I want to say, Madam Moderator, My wife and I moved to this town in 1978, in part, we looked all over Greater Boston, but in part because my wife took a job at Norwood Hospital and worked there for years. And, you know, it's a part of our history. I think it's very important that we have a hospital. I am concerned, I'm torn on this vote, because I'm concerned that we're perhaps sending a message to the legislature, if we vote for this, that we don't think they're going to do it, and they won't do it, and so we're going to do it. And I don't know how we buy a hospital. It's complicated stuff, eminent domain. I don't do work in that field, but it is fairly complicated, and that's why you've got these specialists. But the number that was mentioned a few minutes ago was $100 million. I assume, and maybe this is part of what you want the money for, that somebody's got to figure out the complicated way to take a hospital property by eminent domain, and you've got to pay something for it. You know, but they end up often going to court to come up with the bottom line, but there's a minimum amount you've got to offer as part of that. And then, you know, we've got to, somebody who is going to come in and buy it, presumably is going to have to get a determination of need from the Commonwealth. They can't just build a hospital. So I'm concerned, and I hope that if this passes, that they've thought about that. As I say, I'm torn on it because I don't like spending $300,000 when somebody else could be doing the work for us. And I don't know that we can really buy a hospital, but hope springs eternal. I would say one last thing on this point, that if, and I think an earlier speaker mentioned this, the motion is very vague. And if we've been talking about something fairly specific, why don't we vote on something specific? And therefore, Madam Moderator, I move that the motion be amended to strike the word expenses at the end of the motion and to substitute for expenses related to legal and financial analysis in connection with a potential taking of the Norwood Hospital property.
All right.
Madam Moderator, that's my motion.
All right, is
I'll
there a
reduce it
second
to
on
writing
that?
if you want.
On the amendment, Ms. Homewood? And Mr. Hearn, would you come up and write out that amendment for us, please?
I'll do that, and I'll get her to sign with
That
myself.
sounds
Thank you.
great.
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
All right, so the motion has now been amended. And Mr. Hearn is going to write it out and put it up. Mr. Hearn, can you repeat that again so we can get it up here?
I wish I could.
It sounds so good.
It often sounds good the first time around, and assuming I can read my writing, so that it will read that the sum of $300,000 be transferred from free cash and appropriated to the Norwood Hospital Task Force for expenses related to legal analysis and financial analysis in connection with a potential taking of the Norwood Hospital property. I hope somebody took that down because that's not exactly what I wrote. Thank you.
All right, I've got extensive expenses for legal analysis in conjunction with the taking of Norwood Hospital.
No.
But why don't you?
I'm going to write it, but in connection with, for expenses related to legal and financial analysis in connection with a potential taking of the Norwood Hospital property.
Okay. All right, if you can bring that up here
Yep.
with it signed, Mr. Hearn, we'll get it up on the board. Is that a point of order that I hear back there? And I can't hear you, unfortunately.
May I please ask a point of order?
What's your point of order?
When Ms. Weber asked to move the question, you said we still had to wait for the speakers. Are the people standing?
So first of all, your point of order, we are totally following our rules, Ms. Neil Rizzo. Anyone can bring an amendment to a motion who is a speaker. We don't have to listen to every single speaker before someone can amend a motion. So that is within our rules.
That's not the question. My question is everybody standing?
Yeah, come down to a mic so we can hear you.
Hi, Katie Neal Rizzo, District 2. I'm not sure if I need to tell you that, but I have a question about point of order. When Ms. Weber asked to move the question, you said no because there were still people up here. I was under the impression you were allowed to move the question as long as the registered speakers were done. We don't wait for everybody who wants to speak on a topic to speak before a question could be moved.
But she wasn't recognized. I did not recognize the call the question.
So she couldn't move the question because she wasn't called on.
Correct.
And you have to be at the microphone to be called on?
Or you need to be raising your hand and getting called on, and we'll try to get a mic to you if you're unable to come to the
Okay.
microphone.
I just wanted to clarify for the sanity of all of us in the next 4 nights.
No problem. I explained that in the beginning of the meeting. You might have missed it.
Thank you, madam.
You're welcome. All right, when we resume speakers, we are actually going to be talking about Mr. Hearn's amendment, which we're now debating. We will debate that until somebody moves the question or we stop debate, and then we vote on the amendment first. If the amendment does not pass, we go back to the main motion. Okay, so again, amendments, when amendments are made by the floor and seconded, they become what the subject of debate is. And I would ask that, again, we've been talking about this for a while now. Mr. Hearn's amendment is a form of, I believe, clarifying the motion, putting a little bit more into what it's exactly about, but still is about approving $300,000. So bear with us for a second while we get this up there. All right, while we get Mr. Hearn's amendment fully up there, I'm going to call on the next speaker who's standing in line.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Michael Juzik, District 2. My comment actually can be directed to the amendment for Mr. Hearn. I appreciate the language that he's proposed. I think it is important to clarify exactly what the funds will be used for, and kind of going along with what Mr. Mizuko said earlier, it's good clarification that if the state action and is reported out of committee and it happens tomorrow and the state is going to move forward with its eminent domain taking, that those $300,000 will then be going back into the town's coffers and not just simply sitting in the hospital task force. I guess just my other comment, I feel like I kind of need to put this out there on the record. I am an attorney with Greenberg Traurig, so I'll be abstaining from the votes, I believe. But when I came in tonight, I wasn't sure what I thought about this article. I'm very pleased and happy to hear that there's been very thoughtful discussion on both sides. Just kind of a general comment, the situation is reminding me of what many of us may remember happened with the Filene's building in downtown Boston years ago, where the owner essentially tore it down, left a giant hole in downtown Boston, and then held out for tax breaks and a better deal from the city. And that wasn't resolved until, I believe, the city started pulling permits from that company. So I just seeing some echoes of the same situation here in Norwood, and I'm pleased that this body is considering this with such seriousness. Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir.
Patrick Griffin from District 4. I had, during the initial commentary on this, it was suggested that there were relatively few comparators to the situation we're in that a town entity is seeking to take by eminent domain a property that is a fairly large commercial property like this, because hospitals have a sort of unique character to them. But few doesn't mean none, and I'm wondering whether there has been any preliminary study to assess the total cost of such an undertaking by a town versus, for example, from the state itself.
Mr. Mizuko?
Thank you. If you're referring to the cost of the property and what that's actually going to come in at, this is what would let us get to a what I would call a defensible number, because to your point, it's not as simple as a single-family home to know what it costs. Towns engage in eminent domain on commercial property for different reasons. Hospitals are rare. And the state taking St. E's is probably the last recent case in Massachusetts, and it's because there just aren't that many hospitals. So it's somewhat uncharted territory. There's other models out there of how cities and towns in Massachusetts do this according to the law. There's just not that many hospitals that get taken by eminent domain all that often, which is what leads to the request being the dollar amount that it is. If this was, again, a single-family home, we would probably spend $5,000 or $10,000 and know exactly what we're doing. These are complicated numbers that have a much wider variance, not only because it's commercial, but the particular odd hospital economics.
May I have
Mr.
a follow-up?
Griffin, is there a follow-up?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Moderator. So following on an earlier question, if the state is undertaking or may be undertaking similar research in this vein, would we not benefit from not doing duplicative work? If they're conducting similar studies, would we be able to onboard some of the analysis that they've done to perhaps reduce any future cost we might have?
Mr. Mizuko?
So there's no easy answer to that, other than if the town as its own corporate entity was going to go forward with the taking, we would need to have produced our sort of own work product, have our attorneys who work for us defend that work product and know that this is the number going forward. Ultimately, eminent domain, if you challenge the amount, depending on which route you go, ends up in front of a jury. Could we say, well, we copied somebody else's work? It's possible, but we would need to make sure that we had access to all that and that work was done, and it was done at a level that could pass that legal muster when we get to that stage.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Shea, are you waiting to speak?
Yes. Jerry Shea, District 8. You know, I'm going to vote against this, all right? 3 years ago, I did die, okay? But we have John Rogers over here, who's our state rep. He's been up there for more than 30 years. And it now is coming close to the finish line. Let's let him do his job. You know, because if we do vote for this and we pass it, they're just going to, town hall is going to take care of their own stuff. Let us not do that, and let us let everything go as it's supposed to go. He has a chance to now to move this bill along. Let's let him move the bill along, and then we'll get our hospital back.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shea. Mr. Plasko?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bill Plasko, District 1. In light of the amendment, I'd like to hold my comments until we see the results of that vote.
All right. Yes, sir?
George Holmesley, District 6. So, Madam Moderator, is there a time frame schedule for if this motion was voted in favor to start the legal and financial analysis? And how soon will that happen from after this is voted for? And is that timeline taking into consideration where the state is in its process, so that we're not using the funds unnecessarily?
Mr. Mizuko, you want to answer that, please?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. In terms of a timeline, we'd like to know by fall town meeting whether this is a realistic possibility. We'd like to continue the work that we've already done and start as soon as town meeting is concluded, if the motion passes tonight. The thought process is not to wait until a fall town meeting. There's nothing that says we couldn't wait until the end of the legislative season, July 31st, and then call a town meeting, but at that point, we'd be calling a town meeting in November, which is a possibility.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Follow up?
Yes, go ahead.
So is the idea to start right away, or at least wait for the state, from what Mr. Rogers mentioned, that they're days away in hearing back on what's going to happen with the bill, for example.
Mr. Mizuko?
Thank you. We would begin shortly after the conclusion of town meeting is the plan.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Neil Rizzo?
Katie Neal Rizzo, District 2. May I please move the question?
All right, is there a second? How many seconds do we have there? All right. We are going to be voting on the amendment. So just so town meeting members are informed, and Ms. Jacobs second, Madam Clerk. We first will vote on the amendment, which is right up there, Mr. Hearn's amendment. Everybody clear on that? We are voting on Mr. Hearn's amendment. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Point of order. It's absolutely the best way of moving the question. All right. All those in favor of moving the question say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. All right. Clearly that's a 2/3 majority. Thank you. Now we actually go to the amendment by Mr. Hearn. 300,000. Whoop. All right, I'm going to open the vote on Mr. Hearn's amendment. Voting is now open. Ten seconds. Let's close the vote. And the amendment passes 126 to 51 with 7 abstentions. So that now becomes the main motion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're going to put that to a vote. And actually, we're voting on Mr. Hearn's motion becomes the main motion. All right. All those, voting is now open. You guys are ahead of me already. This is to approve the 300,000 for Norwood Hospital. Task force. 10 seconds. Let's close the vote. Motion passes 108 to 74 with 3 abstentions. It is a majority vote. That takes us to Article 4, unpaid bills. Mr. Fleming and the FinCom.
Moved by the Finance Commission that the sum of $5,500.69 be transferred from free cash and appropriated for the purpose of paying unpaid bills for fiscal years prior to July 1st, 2025.
Mr. Slater, you're seconding? Mr. Fleming on the motion?
The Finance Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this article.
All right, Mr. Kirker, I have you registered for this. I'm assuming you're passing on this as well. All right. Anyone on the motion? Seeing none, let's put it to a vote. This is $5,569. I will announce it, Mr. Hearn. Thank you for keeping me honest. This is our favorite vote because the quantum of vote is 9/10. So please, everybody, it's very important that everybody votes. Let's open the voting. Ten seconds. Close the vote. 169 to 14. I believe that's a 9/10, but we will verify. And it is. Motion passes. All right. Mr. Lane, can I have a motion to dissolve the special and reopen the annual town meeting? And Mr. Donnelly, you're seconding? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. All right, we move back to the annual town meeting. Article 1. We are actually at the consent agenda. So let me remind the body of how we do this. I'm going to call out the 3 articles that we're proposing for the consent agenda. If anyone is opposed to including them in the consent agenda and voting them as a group, I need you to yell out loudly. 3 members would yell out loudly. If not, we will go and we will take them as one agenda item and 2 different motions. So, Article 1, reports of town officers and committees. Article 2, Treasurer's Office banking arrangements. And Article 3, revolving fund spending limits for fiscal year 2027. All right. I see Mr. Nardelli, I see Mr. Lynch. Are you yelling, Mr. Lynch? And Mr. Orfanos. Okay, so that means that Articles 1 and 2 will be part of the consent agenda. We will take Article 3 in the order, which means the consent agenda comes first. So, Mr. Lane, I believe you are moving to take the proposed consent agenda articles as printed in the warrant out of order to be part of the proposed consent agenda and acted upon as one item without debate. And Mr. Donnelly, you're seconding? All right. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. All right. Again, Mr. Lane, now we're going to vote on the consent agenda items as shown in the proposed consent agenda. Is that your motion, Mr. Lane? And Mr. Donnelly, you're seconding. All right. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. All right. The consent agenda is passed. That takes us to Article 3 and the FinCom, Mr. Fleming.
Microphone.
Did you hit the button? Max, is he on?
I don't know. Can you start talking, please? Hello, hello?
Yeah, his light's
The
not
light's
on.
not on, so.
Here, you want to try this one?
Try this one?
Well,
All right, okay. Moved by the Finance Commission that the town hereby authorizes the following revolving fund spending limits for fiscal year 2027 in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2, for the purpose of funding programs administered by the Council on Aging, $150,000, Norwood Public Library, $75,000, Tobacco Enforcement and Education, Health Department, $15,000, Recreation Extended Day Fund, $1,750,000.
all right. And Mr. Slater, you're seconding. All right. On the motion, Mr. Fleming.
Finance Commission voted unanimously to recommend adoption of this article.
Okay. And these are spending limits, not actual spending, but the limits for the revolving funds for the year.
That is correct.
Thank you. All right. On this, any discussion? Seeing none, we're going to put it to a vote. Up. All right. I do see Ms. Sobchak.
Hi, Amy Sobchak, District 4.
Can you just explain to me what that actually means? So does that mean that the Recreation Extended Day Fund takes in $1,750,000 and then expends it, or that's all that they can expend? How does that actually work, please?
Okay, we're going to have Mr. O'Neill, the Director of Finance, answer your question, Ms. Salcha.
Thank you.
Mic check. Hello. Again, Jeff O'Neill, Director of Finance, Town Accountant. So that's exactly what it is. It's a spending limit, so the expectation is that the extended day will take in $1,750,000, and their overall expenses are about to be around that amount of money. So each one of these is a spending limit based on what we expect that fund to take in.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right, seeing none, we're going to put it to a vote. This is Article 3 on revolving fund spending limits for fiscal year 2027. Let's open the vote. This is a majority vote. Ten seconds. Let's close the vote. Article passes 160 yeses, 117 noes, and 3 abstentions. That takes us to Article 4, but before we start Article 4, Mr. Fleming, I believe the FinCom has a presentation on the state of town finances. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, and also before we start, Mr. Fleming has said he needs less than 20 minutes. He does have 10. Can I have a motion to allow Mr. Fleming to go for 20 minutes, the extension? Mr. Connolly? And can I have a second? Ms. Sullivan? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. All right, the ayes have it. Go ahead, Mr. Fleming.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Town meeting members. I'll start with an overview of the town's financial picture, where we are, how we got here, and where we are headed. Starting with where we are. On the next slide is this slide is the fiscal health dashboard that's in the beginning of section 1 of the budget book. These 5 charts give a snapshot of the status of the town's finances. In summary, Norwood's finances are sound and stable in the near term. Now let's review each of these. On the next slide, it shows the balances of our reserve funds. Our general purpose reserve balance exceeds the minimum balance per our financial policies. We're on the slide on the screen. Okay, this slide shows the balances in our reserve funds. Our general purpose reserve balance exceeds the minimum balance per our financial policies. The override stabilization fund has been all but exhausted, while free cash, while still substantial, is declining from the extraordinary levels of recent years. Let's go to the next slide. This chart addresses debt service, the annual amount of interest and principal payments that we need to make on the bonds that we've issued for capital expenses. Our excellent AA+ bond rating was recently reaffirmed, which minimizes the interest rate that we have to pay. The debt service amount is stable, and it's well below the maximum ceiling in our financial policies. We have used free cash for capital expenses where appropriate, and this minimizes the need for borrowing. Let's go to the next slide. This chart indicates where we are in funding the town's liability for future pension and OPEB benefits for retired town employees. OPEB, or other post-employment benefits, refers to retiree health insurance benefits. This liability is substantial and subject to the performance of the investments in the fund. Our plan is to gradually fully fund the pension liability and then shift to funding the OPEB. Let's move to the next slide about revenue. 2/3 of our revenue comes from property taxes, with the remainder from state aid and local receipts such as excise taxes and fees. The total projected revenues for fiscal year 27 is $168.7 million. This is a 4% increase over last year. helped by $3.6 million in additional property taxes from new construction, which is referred to as new growth. Now on the next slide, this chart shows the budget divided into the four major categories of schools, general government, shared costs, and facilities. The total projected expenditure for fiscal '27 is $175.5 million, which exceeds revenue by $7.4 million. This gap is being funded with free cash. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, this gives us a summary of the status of the current year's budget. The current year's budget was also balanced with $7.4 million of free cash, and it addressed the cost of staffing the new middle school, funding staff positions coming off COVID-era grants, as well as general contractual salary increases. Through the first 3 quarters of fiscal '26, we are generally on budget, and we expect to generate free cash at the end of the year. However, the amount of new free cash will likely be less than in previous years. We also experienced overruns in a few areas, which we had to fund in the special town meeting recently concluded. Now let's go to the next slide and review how we got here. In 2019, an operational override was passed that was intended to address the budget gap along with other needs for a period of 5 years. However, that override has lasted at least 3 years longer than expected due to several unforeseen events, such as major commercial building projects that have generated both large building permit fees and new growth revenue. We also received a number of substantial grants, and we generated large amounts of investment income in our free cash balance, as well as on the middle school building funds, while they were waiting to be spent. Let's go to the next slide for a preview of where we're headed financially. We have had very large amounts of free cash, which we've used to cover the gap in our budget between revenues and expenses. Free cash is a finite resource, and the amount is declining as we use it each year. Based on what we know today, we have enough to fund this year's budget and likely next year's. But if current trends continue, we'll exhaust our free cash in 2 years, and a general operational override will be needed in 2028 to maintain town services in fiscal '29. Let's go on to the next slide. Let's talk about why we have a budget gap each year. In short, the cost of providing town services is greater than our available revenue, and the costs are increasing faster than those revenues. So the gap will only increase in the years ahead. This is not unique to Norwood. Towns throughout Massachusetts are facing the same issue. Let's go to the next slide. And here are some of the issues that contribute to this gap. On the cost side, much of what the town does requires people, and the cost of personnel increases per step increases in their contracts and annual cost of living adjustments. The cost of providing town services increases every year, just as the cost of running a business or a household does. Some costs are increasing faster than the rate of inflation, notably health insurance, trash disposal, and pensions. On the revenue side, the town operates in a very restrictive environment. State laws, such as Proposition 2.5, limit what we can raise in taxes, and the town has no authority to raise other taxes. While the annual increase in the property tax levy is restricted to 2.5%, it is a predictable source of funds. Other sources of revenue, such as new growth, state aid, and local receipts, are inconsistent, and they do not always keep up with inflation. Next slide, please. There are a number of factors outside of the town's control that can have a profound effect on the town's financial situation. Most importantly is the health of the economy. Income from several of our revenue sources directly related to economic activity. State aid, new construction, excise tax revenue tend to go up in a booming economy and decline when there's a recession. Let's go to the next slide. Beyond economic conditions, there are a number of wildcards that are unpredictable and can significantly increase our costs. Healthcare costs are dependent on utilization rates, the cost of new therapies, and national trends and policies. These costs are increasing much faster than general inflation for the town, as they are for businesses and individuals. The cost of funding our pension liability can vary dramatically with the level of the financial markets. Formulas for distributing state and federal aid can change with the political situation, along with the regulations and mandates that the federal and state governments impose on the town, particularly regarding education. Severe weather events and sudden increases in energy prices are always a risk that are difficult to budget for. While our overall school enrollment is stable, the needs of our students change over time and from year to year. Additional staff may be required to address specific needs of students in the Norwood schools in a given year. Similarly, the number of students that need or choose to attend other schools, Blue Hills, charter schools, or out-of-district special education placements, changes unpredictably from year to year, along with the associated cost of tuitions that we have to pay for those students. Finally, the continued lack of Norwood Hospital continues to stress our fire department. We don't know when or if or in what form it may reopen and what impact that will have on our costs for providing emergency services. On the next slide, let's turn to the proposed budget for fiscal 27. Firstly, we need to be mindful of our goal as a town, which is to provide a consistent level of services to the residents of Norwood. Education, public safety, roads, parks, and so forth. These services provide for the needs of our residents and also support our property values. The recommended fiscal 27 budget supports the same level of services as last year. Next slide, please. The recommended fiscal 27 budget totals $175.5 million. We've added this new chart in section 3D of the budget book to illustrate the largest components of the budget. Note that health insurance for current and retired employees is the second largest category after education at $22 million. Next slide, please. Now, a level services budget is not a level cost budget. The cost of doing the same thing goes up year over year. This year, costs and revenue are estimated to increase at the same 4% rate over last year. But costs still exceed revenues, which requires the recommended use of $7.4 million in free cash to fund the gap. Staffing in the proposed budget is stable. There's a reduction in 2 positions in general government through attrition. School staff will increase by 1 or 3, depending on actual kindergarten enrollment, while 1 position is being shifted from the schools to the library. Health insurance costs increased by over 8%, which is an additional $1.7 million. Several years ago, we obtained a state grant to regionalize our public safety dispatch function. That grant has been paying the full cost of this service, but the grant is now phasing out. This year, the town will be funding 50% of the cost, which is $750,000. Next year, the town will pay 75% and then 100% in subsequent years. Trash disposal costs increased by over 10%, or $300,000. This is due to contractual rate increases rather than an increase in the tonnage of trash being picked up. Next slide, please. We have increased the number of police vehicles we purchase each year from 4 to 5. We used to obtain unmarked and detective vehicles at no cost from the federal seizure program, but those are no longer available. On the positive side, ambulance revenue is increasing steadily. The budget for the cost of collecting those revenues have been increased accordingly. The budget for workers' compensation has decreased by $300,000. This is a benefit of the appropriation that was made to the Workers' Compensation Fund at last fall's special town meeting. And finally, the budget for recreation salaries has been reduced by almost $100,000. This is due to shifting the program costs and the associated fee revenues to the Recreation Revolving Fund. Now, on the next slide, I'll mention some of the financial initiatives the town is undertaking. We're modernizing our financial system by fully utilizing the capabilities of Munis. We're working to properly allocate costs between the general fund and the various revolving and enterprise funds. We're building our budgets conservatively. Each line item is reviewed carefully to ensure that we are not over or under budgeting, and we are avoiding reliance on optimistic projections that can create future shortfalls. The schools are actively working to manage special education costs, particularly minimizing out-of-district placements, which can be very, very costly for both tuition and transportation. And we're currently reviewing and updating our financial policies to be realistic, achievable, and current. We have highlighted and made note of this in the financial policy checklist at the beginning of section 1 of the budget book for those areas where we're not currently meeting the requirements of the policies. Finally, over the next few years, we will be gradually revising the budget book to reflect best practices. Our intent is to improve the accessibility of the information and standardize formatting to make comparisons easier between departments and ultimately between towns. We would appreciate any feedback or suggestions they may have to help us make the budget book more useful to you. Next slide. In conclusion, the recommended budget for fiscal year 27 maintains level services and uses $7.4 million in free cash. We anticipate that we will be able to maintain level services using free cash in the following year as well. However, using our declining reserve of free cash to balance the budget is not sustainable. Maintaining level services is expected to require an operational override in 2028 for the fiscal 29 budget. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fleming. All right, let's move on to Article 4. And Mr. Fleming, you have the motion.
Yes. Finance Commission moves that the sum of $7,361,784 be transferred from free cash and appropriated to reduce the fiscal 2027 tax levy rate.
Mr. Slater, you're seconded. Mr. Fleming on the motion.
Yes, the Finance Commission voted unanimously to recommend this article for adoption. The purpose of this article is to authorize the use of free cash to balance the budget. The wording of the motion has been directed to us by the State Department of Revenue, who oversees our finances. They've asked us to do it with the wording given, even if it's a little confusing.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. All right, so again, the wording on this, thank you, Mr. Fleming, for explaining the wording that was given to us directly by the Department of Revenue and validated by Town Council. Anything on the motion? Mr. Lynch, thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Moderator.
Mr. Lynch, you're going to tell us who you are?
Yeah, Ed Lynch, District 7.
Thank you.
Thank you. So my first question is the structural deficit being addressed at all here in any of these budgets to the FinCom? Thank you.
Who wants to take that?
I'll start it off. I mean, as I pointed out in the presentation, the structural deficit is caused by the fact that expenses are greater than revenues, and they're growing faster than revenues. That is a fact of life of being a municipal government in Massachusetts. If we want to continue the same level of services that we have, we need to fund the gap with something. In this case, we're funding it with free cash, but that can only go on as long as we have free cash to use. And as I mentioned, that means in a couple of years, we'd have to, if we want to maintain level services, we would have to have an operational override to increase what we can raise from real estate taxes.
Is there a follow-up, Mr. Lynch?
Yes, thank you. So in the book, there were the reserve funds. So my question is, what are the reserves for? And can we use some of the reserve funds in some of those accounts? I mean, when do they get used?
Well, one of those reserve funds is free cash, and we are using $7 million of it to balance this budget. The other general stabilization fund would be for something really extraordinary happening that we can't anticipate and that is not currently occurring. So,
thank you. Last question.
All right,
so
Mr.
in that
Lynch?
presentation, I didn't see in 2027 the potential for the override for the safety, the 1.8 million.
right.
For 2020.
That is being handled separate from the basic budget. The fiscal year budget that we're proposing under Article 6 is just a level services budget to continue what we were doing last year, next year.
Yeah, to put it in simple terms, it's outside of the budget,
Outside
Mr.
the
Lynch.
budget.
It's a separate appropriation.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Mr. Gunning, are you back there?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Brian Gunning, District 3. By and through you, Madam Moderator. The question is directed to the Finance Committee. In 2017, the average annual tax bill for a Norwood resident was $4,658. In 2020, the average annual tax bill in Norwood was $5,367. In 2024, that amount was $6,848. In 2026, the average annual tax bill for a resident of Norwood is $7,065. it seems to me, based on the revenues that the Finance Commission has listed, we don't have a revenue problem in Norwood. We have a spending problem. And tough decisions need to be made, not transfers and accounting magic. We have a structural deficit, and someone in this town has to stand up on behalf of the taxpayers and demand accountability that we adjust our budget accordingly. Every household in this Commonwealth has to do it. We have to balance our personal budgets, or we declare personal bankruptcy. There's an increasing amount of overrides in this state, both in amount and frequency, and Norwood is no exception. And everyone admits that's where we're heading, but yet here we are allocating more money, more spending. And my question is, how long is this going to go on? Thank you.
Hey, folks, and look, let me remind the body that we are talking about an appropriation of $7,361,784 to be transferred from free cash to augment the budget. We haven't gotten to the budget yet. Mr. Fleming, I'm not sure there was a question there, but if you do want to respond, I will let you. Sounds like Mr. Gunning doesn't want a response. Thank you, Mr. Gunning. Thank you, Mr. Gunning. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Moderator, Karen Curran, District 9. I want to thank the Finance Commission. I know you work extremely hard on these budgets. I have obviously some questions. We all know free cash is supposed to be for a non-reoccurring expense. And yet we are funding not only this year, but next year. And the financial projections contained in the budget book project we're going to use free cash through 2031. In nowhere in the analysis have you indicated what the total override amount may be represented by the use of free cash or eliminating the use of free cash. Free cash is not something that's a stable, reliable source of funding. It is extremely risky to project out through 2031 that we are going to have enough free cash to balance the budget. I agree. I think it's time we bit the bullet. I know it's painful. It's very painful. But we can't get to 2029 and have a $10 million override. And that's where we're heading. So my question to you is there a definitive plan to replace the use of free cash? And why don't we simply bite the bullet, not transfer free cash, and reduce the budget this year?
Mr. Fleming, you want to take that?
Yes, Madam Moderator, thank you. I think what I said was not 2031, was that we would need to probably do an operational override in 2 years. That would be
Yes,
calendar
no,
year.
I understood that.
Calendar year 2028 for fiscal year 29. There is a built-in problem in municipal finance in that our revenues are not allowed to rise as fast as inflation. The property tax levy is allowed to go up 2.5%. That is generally less than inflation in most years, as you probably know from personal experience. If it's the grocery store or Amazon or whoever, and inflation goes up, they raise their prices. They don't ask anyone's permission. The town of Norwood is required to, under the law, to basically say, okay, we need to raise prices, if you will, and do a vote to do that. At the end of the day, it comes down to a simple question, and this is a question that's going to have to be asked on a regular basis, more or less forever. Do you want to raise your taxes? Do you want to cut your services? In the budget book, we presented an analysis of what that might look like this year of what taking $7.5 million out of the budget would do.
Yes.
I would suggest that you, for one thing, compare $7.5 million to the costs of some things like the library, the Board of Health, the Recreation Department, and you'll find that it's less than all of those. But it's an analysis that everybody has to do on their own based on their personal circumstances. But that is the question that ultimately gets asked. Now, we've had an extraordinary series of events that has given us a very large amount of free cash. Normally, we wouldn't spend it on balancing the budget. But it doesn't make sense to us to be sitting on an enormous savings account and then ask for a tax increase at the same time. It's a little bit like if you had $1 million in the bank and you needed to go hire a tutor for help one of your kids with their math homework. You wouldn't go and get a second job to pay for it. You just take money out of the bank. If you didn't have any money in the bank, obviously, then you'd go get a second job or whatever. But, so for right now, it makes sense to use the extraordinary savings we have to fill the gap for a couple of years. But you're right, at one point, you're down to the minimum amount of free cash you want to have to, do some small capital expenditures, to have a cushion if you need it for things like, the unpaid bills or extra snow and ice costs, things like that. But then you get to a point where you basically you're out of options, and you're down to, do you want an override or do you want to cut services?
Why haven't we been given
Ms.
an
Curran,
override
please.
amount?
Do you have a follow-up, Ms. Curran?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Why haven't we been given a potential override amount?
I think it's too early to say what that amount would be 2 years from now. I mean, a lot can happen. The other thing you'd want to take into account is, well, how long would you want that override to last for? In 2019, we set it up to last for 5 years. So we set it higher we brought in extra money in the first couple of years that we saved up to then cover the gap in the last couple of years. It would depend on, do you want it to last for 3 years, for 5 years? I mean, that's something that we'd have to look at the time based on what the financial situation looked like then.
Is there a follow-up, Ms. Curran?
Yes, I have a follow-up. I think there's a little bit of a mischaracterization of expenses. Between 2019 and 2026, insurance, healthcare, all those costs rose by 15%. General government spending rose by 25%, and the school department expenditures rose by 45%. I think that the decision to bite the bullet, not vote in free cash this year, reduce the budget, will ultimately reduce the override amount. Taxes in the town of Norwood have gone up 27% in 5 years. People cannot afford to double that for 27% 2 years from now. So I think we need to face the music. And that's my comment.
All right, thank you, Ms. Curran. All right, Ms. Numi, are you back there?
I am, thank you, Madam Moderator. Kelly Numi, District 5. I'm talking as a town meeting member, not as a member of the FinCom. So I think some really good points have been raised by people. I think Chairman Fleming did a great job of explaining the challenges. The challenges is that Proposition 2.5 limits the amount we can raise taxes by 2.5%, right? Since 1956, the average rate of inflation is 3.8%. So right off the gate, not looking at individual sectors or government mandates, you're in a 1.2 or 1.4% hole every single year. Because that's just the nature of how the economics work. Now, as a body, we all have the right to make a decision, right? We can decide, do we want to vote for an override or talk about that in the future, right? So we can maintain the services that make the town what it's are and the services that are important to everybody. Or we can make a decision where we don't want to do that, right? And that's the will of town meeting, and that's the will of the community to vote on that. Before anyone does it, believe me, I don't want to spend one dime more than I have to spend. Believe me, I have no desire to do that. But before people vote and start talking about cutting and slashing $7.3 million of the budget, I want people to really look at the projections that are in that budget book And I want them to really understand what that means. There's not fat lying around where we just cut that. We can't cut mandated services in the town, whether that's in the general government or it's the schools, which is where almost all of that increase in cost, except for normal increases from contracts, is coming from. It's all government mandates. We legally have to provide it whether or not they fund it. And there's some in the general government that do that too. So before, everyone wants to spend less money, believe me, and I understand that. I don't want to spend any more than I have to. But understand what you're voting against. It's easy to say I don't want to spend more money, but what's the impact of that? What does that cost us individually? What does that cost us as a community? And what does that mean to the most vulnerable residents of our community, both our kids and our seniors? And we've got to look at that before we just say, let's slash money. Everyone needs to understand that, and then we can have a vote that says, okay, I accept the fact that we're going to cut the rec department. I accept the fact that we're going to cut school athletics and fine arts. I accept the fact that we're going to cut employees at the town hall. Once we all understand that and we accept it, sure, that's fine, but please, please look at what this means before you decide to vote against spending this money to balance the budget. Thank you.
All right, anything else on the motion? Seeing none, we're going to put it to a vote. This is $7,361,784 be transferred from free cash and appropriated to reduce the fiscal year 2027 tax levy rate. This is a majority vote. Essentially what it means in kitchen English is that we're using $7.3 million to fund the budget. All right, I'm going to open the voting, and the voting is now open. Simple majority. Ten seconds. Close the vote. Motion carries 135 to 45 with 2 abstentions. That takes us to Article 5. Mr. Fleming.
Motion by the Finance Commission that the sum of $832,373 be transferred from Water Sewer Enterprise Fund receipts and appropriated to support the fiscal 2027 operating budget.
Mr. Slater, you're seconding. Mr. Fleming on the motion.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is similar to the previous article. It's his language that the Department of Revenue has directed that we use. The purpose here is to allow the use of money from the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund to be used in the budget to compensate the town for the administrative services that the town provides to the water sewer operation.
And the FinCom voted 5-0?
The FinCom voted unanimously to recommend approval of this article.
All right, thank you. Anything on the motion? Seeing none, let's put it to a vote. This is $832,373 to be transferred from Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund receipts and appropriated to support the fiscal year 2027 operating budget. It's a majority vote. Let's open the voting. Voting is now open. Ten seconds. Close the vote. The motion carries 155 to 18 and no abstentions. That takes us to Article 6, which is the budget. Hopefully folks have brought their budget books with them. We start on Section 3C. If you want to look at all the detail, otherwise the top line numbers will be a part of 9 separate motions based on different categories in the budget. So again, If you want to follow the details, Section 3C in your budget book, and Mr. Fleming with the first motion.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Motion by the Finance Commission that the sum of $7,318,819 be appropriated for general government purposes, of which $6,636,325 shall be raised and appropriated, $313,441 shall be transferred from free cash, and $369,053 shall be transferred from Water Sewer Enterprise Fund. All sums voted for salaries are to be expended in conformance with the official budget of the Finance Commission unless otherwise voted by the town meeting. All sums voted for new equipment shall be expended for items listed in the budgets approved by the Finance Commission and voted by the town meeting. As displayed in the budget book, restrictions by salaries total, operating expenses totals, and capital expenses totals are explicitly incorporated into this vote. And the details are as shown on the screen. Do we have that part of the motion?
Next slide, please.
Yep. There we go. I won't read through all that.
Yep. All right. Mr. Fleming, and you're taking the motion. Mr. Slater, you're seconding on the motion.
And I'll just mention the Finance Commission voted to unanimously to approve this motion. I'll just mention, so the previous two articles authorize the use of free cash and the water sewer money. Each of these motions will tell how much of that is going to each section of the budget.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fleming. All right, Mr. Alfanos, you registered on this one. Can you get to a microphone if you still want to speak on it? You're good? Okay, thank you. Anything else on general government? Seeing none, we're going to put it to a vote. And this is $7,318,819 to fund general government. Let's open the vote. Majority vote. Ten seconds. Close the vote. Motion carries 148 to 26 with 0 abstentions. That takes us to Article 6, Motion 2. Mr. Fleming.
Finance Commission moves that the sum of $23,557,863 be appropriated for public safety purposes, of which $22,548,955 shall be raised and appropriated. $1,008,908 should be transferred from free cash. All sums voted for salaries are to be expended in conformance with the official budget of the Finance Commission unless otherwise voted by the town meeting. All sums voted for new equipment shall be expended for items listed in the budgets approved by the Finance Commission and voted by the town meeting. As displayed in the budget book, restrictions by salaries totals, operating expenses totals, and capital expenses totals are explicitly incorporated into this vote. And the details on the next slide. There we go.
All right. And Mr. Slater, you're seconding? All right. Mr. Fleming on the motion.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The Finance Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this motion.
All right. Thank you. On the motion. Seeing none. Oh, Mr. Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ed Lynch, District 7. Question, please, to the chief of the fire and the police, please. This budget, why didn't we recognize we were so short-handed with staffs up there until about the last 6 months is when I started to hear about this, that the numbers are so low? Thank you.
Chief Patton, you want to?
Good evening, Chris Patton. Good. Chris Patton, Chief of Police. We've known about this for some time. Town meeting appropriated money for studies, I believe 2 years ago or 3 years ago. The studies were done. We started seeing the trends of our calls
increases. Then it was exacerbated by the hospital issue. On the police side, from 2020 to 2025, our call volume went up roughly about 41%. So, you know, it does take some time to kind of move through this. We've been doing studies. Fire had an outside company come in. We did on the police side internally, and we've been looking at this for quite some time. I've been in this position for 2 years now. Myself and Chief Brooks, we also had these conversations. One of the tactics that we tried to take was that whenever a certain number of apartments or housing units got built within town, that we would ask for another officer in order to try and keep pace. But yeah, it's really been exacerbated in the last 5 years between the increased call volume and the other issues that I just enumerated.
Thank you, Chief. Is there a follow-up, Mr. Lynch? And I'm going to remind the body, we're not talking about the override right now. We're just talking about the regular funding for the budget for the public safety. Go ahead, Mr. Lynch.
No, just a comment. I appreciate, I support the, you need more people up there. There's no question about that. There's no hires in all these years. You can see that, but just too bad it wasn't like a couple 2 years ago, 2 or 3, a year or 2 ago, a couple this year. But I mean, it is what it is, and we've got to, I just curious to know. I know there are more people coming in, more apartments obviously coming in, and that's gonna put a stress on it too. So just wanted to make a comment, and sure you want to make a comment too. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously always available for questions. We've been trying to get this out to town meeting and to the public over the last number of months, and trying to answer questions, informational sessions. The fire union's done it. The police and myself, fire chief and myself have done it. So hopefully we've been able to answer a lot of questions, and obviously we would have liked to have gotten as much information out to everybody as possible, and we're always available even after this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Ms. Barrows?
Good evening, Carolyn Barrows, District 8. I'm 100% in support of this motion. I do have 2 budgetary questions. The first one, Madam Moderator, is for the police department. If there was concern by residents of Norwood regarding more transparency around finances specific to things like infrastructure in the town, is there a way that could be articulated in a budget, or the way for citizens to see those costs as part of the budget?
All right, who would like to take, Mr. Mizuko, do you want to take that? Or Mr. Yeah. I'll start, I guess. Okay.
Thank you, Madam. I think this mic is there. Thank you, Madam. No. Thank you, Madam. We'll just get, there we go. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I mean, it's a tough question to answer. We budget by line item. If you had specific questions or wanted to understand how something worked, it's always better to reach out to us. We sometimes receive grant funding that's not reflected in the budget book, and that leads to certain purchases as well. So I think the short answer is just reach out to us with any questions you have, and we're more than happy to answer them.
Follow-up, Ms. Barrows?
Yes, ma'am. So in regards to, and considering the fact that you mentioned grant funding, that is not accounted for in the budget for operations or things that go on in the police department, I'm wondering if, does the police department receive any financial profit or benefit from things like ticketing or seizures? I'm just curious, because they mentioned the cars being part of seizures earlier.
We'll have the chief
We're going to let Chief Patton take that.
Thank you.
Madam Chief of Police. Yeah, so profit is the wrong word. We do receive benefit for certain things. The goal is never for us to do ticketing or motor vehicle enforcement in order to raise funds. You've seen that actually in other parts of the country that have created problems. That's never our goal. It's always to change driver behavior. And the majority of our ticketing and funds that come to us through that, really, the majority of our citations are actually warnings. There are monies that come to us through Chapter 90 funds. A lot of that is based on the gas tax, and some of it is based on fines and things along those lines for citations. But we don't ever use that to drive, we don't send the officers out there and say, hey, listen, we need another guy, you need to go write, X amount of tickets. It would be immoral and incorrect. As far as grant funds go, we seek grants when we can from the federal government and other sources. For example, we have a grant currently that is related to our clinician, our co-response clinician, so that we can have a mental health professional come out to us, and that's how we pay salaries for that. Occasionally, we'll buy equipment with grants when there's opportunities through the state or Bureau of Justice Assistance. And we offset the cost of things along those lines for the town, so that the town doesn't have to buy some of this equipment. And related to your other portion, related to vehicles, sometimes we will get seizure money related to drug seizures, and that would provide us with vehicles. Sometimes we go through a court process where we take drug dealers' cars and we use them for our undercover cars. That source has dried up a little bit over the last few years, or the turnaround time is so long that the cars will actually, because the court process takes so long, the car might sit for 5 or 6 years, and by the time we get it through the court process, it's really kind of useless, because if you've ever had a car sit for a long time, it's not a good car at that point. So does that answer your questions?
I did have one follow-up, if that's
Okay. Oh, there you go.
moderator. Is it okay?
Go ahead.
It's okay. The reason I ask is I know that we've appropriated money before for specific capital items, I think at the last town meeting, and I'm just curious about the transparency, if there are grants or funds that are being used for capital items, then where is that demonstrated in a budget? Because we're also asking to fund capital items as well. So in regards specifically to the budget motion, I'm just wondering about the holistic view of the budget of the department when we vote in regards to what's coming in and what's going out.
Sure. None of those grant funds would be part of the budget because they're not monies that are appropriated by town meeting.
Okay.
So, for example, we'll go back to the salary for the co-response clinician.
Yeah.
That comes through a state grant, which the governor at this point is talking about slashing that funding from $15 million down to $4 million. So let's hope that that doesn't happen, because we don't want to lose that co-response clinician. If that does happen, then we would seek through the town to fund that in some manner, whether or not that would be able to be done, and then it would be part of the budget process. When the federal government puts out grants for us for certain types of equipment, or when private entities provide grants, we just bought a drone. I think it was what was the drone, 14,000? 12,000. We got a $12,000 grant from the Simone Foundation, and thank you to them, to provide us with a drone that will help us with search and rescue and searches and things along those lines. That would not be part of the overview or the purview of town meeting in order to do that.
Follow-up? Last one, promise. Is there a place, though, that it is recorded that monies are spent on the infrastructure and capital items of the police department and the fire department in regards to just what the town owns and operates within those departments as a public safety department of the town?
The monies would come into the town, but they wouldn't appear in this budget because they wouldn't have been spent from this budget.
Okay.
So if we needed a little bit of extra money, we have miscellaneous expense lines that we can take them out, and those allow us to spend basically at my discretion as the subject matter expert for what the department would need. We could, let's say we have $1 million or whatever it is, and we don't have $1 million in free money to spend. So, but that was just a number that I threw out there, so please don't hold me to that. But for example, if we needed to buy more plate carriers or helmets, or if we had to repair firearms or things like those, we would then, be able to spend those as we need to.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And we'll think about your wishful thinking on $1 million, Chief. I know, he was talking about 100 million before. Ms. Neil Rizzo, you're up.
I'm back. Katie Neal Rizzo, District 2. I have a question about the percentage increase in the budget from last year. In the book, it's on section 3B, page 1, line 291, emergency management, increased 2,923.98% in the last year. I'm just curious what that extraordinary percentage increase is due to?
Yeah, that's the regional dispatch. So the regional dispatch, this is the first year we're actually paying for it. I believe the first 2 years, we did not have to pay when we converted over to regional dispatch. This year, we have to pay for it.
So will that be an annual increase?
3 years. So that 3 years, we got it for free. This year, we actually have to pay for it.
So follow-up, will that be an increase each year of another 2,900%?
Mr. Mizuko or Mr. Fleming knows. Mr. Fleming?
Thank you, Madam. Is this on? All right. Thank you, Madam Moderator. As I mentioned in the presentation, so the grant paid for it for a couple of years. This year, we're paying half the cost. Next year, we'll pay 75% of the cost. So it will be a 50% increase over this year. And the following year, we'll pay 100% of the total cost. So that'll be another 37.5% increase that year. And then after that, it'll just be the normal increase. So we're kind of phasing into from paying for nothing to paying for all of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it does throw off the percentages. It becomes wonky with the percentages. They don't really are meaningful at that point.
Okay.
Is there a follow-up, Mr. Neil Rizzo?
Yes, there was one follow-up. I was wondering if the chief could speak to the placement of flock cameras in town and if that cost anything to the department to allow those cameras to be installed or monitored?
Chief Patton, please.
Sure. In regards to cameras, we've had cameras and would have LPRs. Flock is just a company that runs what's called a license plate reader. We've had them for a number of years. We've also had street cameras. Our initial rounds of street cameras that we place around town were received through grant money. So we applied for grants. We decided to put them at major intersections, and we started using them for various criminal investigations and things along those lines. We've also, and so now that technology has moved forward, and now they have cameras that will read a license plate. And then they'll provide us with information in regards to that. So what was the rest of the question?
It wasn't about the license plate readers or the cameras owned and operated by the town. It was more those owned and operated by the private company, Flock.
So
'Cause I know there's been some.
None of, so they're a contractor for us.
Okay.
Flock, so we have an agreement with them. The data is ours. We pay them to operate the cameras for us.
Okay, so that was my question
Yep.
with what we're paying them. Does that show up in the budget book anywhere? Or
No,
what we're paying?
I don't believe it will show up in the budget book.
Do you know about how much we're paying them
It's about $30,000.
per year?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
It's just like any licensing software service fee, that's roughly around the number. And it's based on how many cameras you have.
And we have 2 in
Ms.
town?
Neil Rizzo,
Sorry,
you're
through you,
asking
Madam
follow-ups?
Moderator?
Yes, thank you. How many you were
How
asking
many-
how many cameras we have?
Yes, madam,
Thank you.
Our total camera count in town,
for the Flock. Through-
probably 13 ingress and egress points within the town of Norwood,
For Flock specifically.
specifically for Flock.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Doug Jassett, Precinct 7. I had just 2 quick questions for the chief. I'm going to vote in favor of this article. I appreciate the job that the chief and the force do. The first one is on line item 171, which covers overtime shift replacement. It looks like for FY '23, '24, '25, it was pretty stable. And all of a sudden, in FY '26, it went up $142,000.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm wondering, why would that have increased so much for 1 year?
And for folks that are looking at their budget books, this is section 3C-15 on that page, item 171. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, no, so what ends up happening is we put in our actual number versus what our budgeted number was. So if you look at FY '26, I think this has actually come up once before, and I just have to remind myself of it, so give me 1 second, because I have a note on it. I believe what ends up happening is, if you look at 25, that's what you're talking about, 25 to 26?
Correct.
So 25 is the actual number, and 26 is the budgeted number. So what happens in the budget process for us is we'll have a requested amount of money, and sometimes we won't get what we request because the town manager and the team, the finance team, will go through and they'll start cutting us from certain numbers. And then the difference between actual and budgeted, that's why it jumps up. Am I probably not being super clear about this?
No, it's
a little
clear.
complicated.
And it probably answers my follow-up, if I may, Madam Moderator.
Go ahead.
Line item 176, paid holidays.
Yeah.
Which were pretty level funded for FY '23, '24, and '25 at $92,000.
Sure.
And they're projected to go to $407,000, but that's just a request.
No, that's actually different, and this is a very simple explanation. So paid holidays are a contractual obligation that the town has to pay each officer.
Sure.
And the actual numbers, if you look at 23, 24, 25, those are the actual monies that we spent. The numbers that are projected in 26 are based on if every officer requested a paid holiday. What we've been able to do within the department is to let officers take a day off instead of a day's pay. And so although the town has to budget for that amount of money, a lot of times we underspend that. So if you notice in 26 to 27, you'll see 407, and then you'll see 323 in the next year. So it goes up and then goes down. What the town has done is they've decided that although they have to contractually obligate that money to us, and we use it basically to cover the overtime costs, it's basically ends up being an overtime line.
Yep.
What they've decided to do was to cut out, to reduce that number, that 407 to 323, as a way to kind of reduce that contractual obligation. Even though if every police officer said, I want to get paid all of my holidays every year, the town would have to pay that. We would then have to come back to town meeting and ask for a supplemental amount of money. But because historically, if you look, we've way underspent, they've decided to cut that back this year. And those are some of the things that over time we've been able to kind of, we will be able to reduce. Like I guarantee you next year when you see this 2026 where it says budgeted, that actual number is going to be way lower than that. And then sometimes when we're under the amount, it'll either go into another overtime line, or if we have extra money, it'll come back to the town meeting. One of the problems we have is a real difficult time is projecting how, if a police officers are hurt, when people retire, long-term injury when they're out. So that money basically ends up staying in the budget because of that. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank
Okay.
you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Taylor?
Jean Ferrara Taylor, District 8, through you, Madam Moderator. Underline 169 to 173. Some of it was answered just now, but on overtime, there seems to be a lot of overtime. Could we kind of go down quickly?
Sure.
To give the reason why there's so much overtime, because I don't have to stand up here, I can go sit down.
Yeah.
I won't have a follow-up. Thank you.
So this is kind of some historical stuff as far as the way we allocate overtime. And if you look, you'll see a generalized overline. Line 169 is a generalized number. And that's just kind of our catch-all overtime. What we're trying to do is we're trying to categorize our overtime types. You go down next, you'll see court, overtime court. That's for when officers go to court and they testify, or they have issues where they have to be at court. We have to pay them to come in for those times if they're not already on shift. Then you'll see shift replacement. That also is one where if we lose people to taking time off or illness or things like that, we have a minimum shift number where we'll take it out of that line. And then you'll see investigation. So if we have, that's a lot of it's detectives or an officer, let's say an officer, for example, has a call that's at the end of their shift and they have to wrap it up, we have to pay overtime out of that. And then other is just a catch-all as well. So the reason that we have all those different categories is we do our best to categorize it so we know what's driving our overtime lines. Does that help?
Yep, you got a nod on
Good.
that, Chief.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Dixon, because Ms. Barrows, you already spoke. Ms. Dixon, you want to grab the mic over there?
Through you, Ms.
And
Moderator.
you're going to tell us who you are and
Oh,
what
yeah,
district.
that part.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Doris Dixon, District 1. I'd like to ask a little bit more about the mental health clinician embedded. How much does she cost? You know I don't have a problem with it. Can you explain a little bit about her and what she does? And I think it ties into the Dove person, though no, not at all. I know they communicate.
They do communicate.
But could you explain that, please?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. So we, through a grant from the state of Massachusetts, have a co-response clinician. A lot of our calls deal with people that have mental health issues. And the co-response clinician works for Riverside, but is paid and administered through Riverside, but we reimburse Riverside through the grant in order for that person to work with us on a regular basis. And so she responds to cases that deal with mental health, sometimes it's substance abuse, or, anytime somebody's in crisis. And one of the things that's very helpful, our officers do a great job at de-escalating situations and that initial level of mental health assistance, but we don't have the capacity or the capability to do the follow-on. So she's our liaison and will get people into longer-term care, help get them back on their medications, help them with substance abuse, communicate with companies like Dove. And what Dove does is they deal with people that are dealing with domestic violence, because a lot of these things are interrelated. So our officers will usually go to a call that we know is related to that, have that person come along, we'll stabilize things, and then that person a lot of times can take it to the next level. The beauty of the system, that co-response system, is that it gives us the ability to reduce our follow-on calls. It gives us the ability to solve a problem long-term. As opposed to the police go out and we quiet things down for the night, this gives us the ability to maybe solve that problem and maybe get a person that needs long-term care or follow-on care, that follow-on care. And then we're reducing our numbers in general. And I think roughly the number is like around 112 that we get from the state of Massachusetts. It comes to the town, the Riverside Community Care bills us, and then we take out of that grant money, and then we pay for that co-response clinician.
All right, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Ms. Barrows.
Sorry, Chief Patton, through the moderator, Carolyn Barrows, District 8. Sorry, I just want to
No
make
worries.
sure I heard you correctly. When discussing the paid holidays and the $300,000 jump in the request, I completely understand you have to budget out for the possibility of it. I totally get that. But when your response, please correct me if I'm wrong, I thought I heard you say if you don't use the funds, then the funds become discretionary, and if the funds as discretionary don't get used, then they come back to town.
So, yeah, all of our overtime lines, so we can only spend in certain tranches of money. So we can spend expenses for expenses, anything that's in a salary or an overtime line, we can spend in various categories, because sometimes we'll outrun one or the other. That salary money, that holiday pay, a lot of times what that does, if an officer takes time off, it goes back to backfill the officer that's filling that shift.
And that's the case with any of the budgets, by the way. Ms.
Correct.
Barris.
Yes. I'm just concerned about the $300,000 budget difference. So none of this $300,000, if it's overage, can be used for any capital expenses. Is that correct?
No, because it's allocated for salaries. So anything in any of these salary lines cannot, unless we come before town meeting and we ask for a transfer.
Okay.
Now, over the years, we've done that, where we've needed new tasers or larger items. We'll come before town meeting and we'll ask for a transfer. If we've been fiscally responsible with the money that we have and we've been able to spend less in our overtime lines, we're not afraid to come before town meeting and ask for a transfer from salaries to capital, because otherwise we'd have to go in front of the capital outlay committee in order to do that. And we're just trying to stay within our budget without going outside for some of our larger ticket items. But we're not doing that this year.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, Ms. Savchuk?
Amy Sobchak, District 4. Just one more question, Chief Padden. As we were talking about the mental health clinician, you've also mentioned that potentially in the budget that the State House has, that funding could be significantly decreased. If that happens, do we have any sort of mechanism within our budget here now to maintain that person's position? Because it seems like it's something that's really an important and good position that the town really utilizes. So I'm just curious if we've done any anticipatory.
Yeah, we've had some discussions, myself and the manager, and we've also been seeking other grants in order to maintain that. Last year, the governor's budget had the same numbers, where they reduced it from, I think it was 12 million down to 4 million. They're doing the same thing this year. In essence, that'll wipe the program out, to be quite honest with you. And we're hoping that the governor puts that back into her budget. I don't want to discuss what our alternatives are, because it's too early, but we have had discussions in order to at least maintain that on some level.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Savchuk. All right, let's put this to a vote. This is $23,557,863 for public safety. Let's open the vote. The vote is now open. Majority. Ten seconds. Let's close the vote. Motion passes 157 to 8 with 1 abstention. All right, that takes us to motion 3, Article 6, motion 3. Mr. Fleming.
Thank you. The Finance Commission moves that the sum of $10,264,283 be appropriated for infrastructure purposes, of which $9,361,376 shall be raised and appropriated. $439,587 shall be transferred from free cash, and $463,320 shall be transferred from Water Sewer Enterprise Fund. All sums voted for salaries are to be expended in conformance with the official budget of the Finance Commission unless otherwise voted by the town meeting. All sums voted for new equipment shall be expended for items listed in the budgets approved by the Finance Commission and voted by the town meeting. As displayed in the budget book, restrictions by salaries totals, operating expenses totals, and capital expenses totals are explicitly incorporated into this vote. And the details are on the next slide.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fleming. And Mr. Slater, your seconder? All right, Mr. Fleming on the motion.
Thank you. The Finance Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this motion.
All right. Infrastructure? Anything on the motion? Yes, sir.
Doug Jessett, District 7. One question on line item 433, the waste removal. Did I understand the FinCom chair correctly when he said that contractually we're obligated to a 10% increase per year in waste removal?
Mr. Fleming?
That is correct, yeah. The increase is due to the increases that are built into the current contract, not that we're generating more trash.
That seems like an exorbitant raise to me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing nothing more, let's put it to a vote. On the motion, $10,264,283 for infrastructure, let's open the vote. This is a majority. Ten seconds. Let's close the vote. Motion passes 142 to 14 with 3 abstentions. That takes us to Article 6, Motion 4. Mr. Fleming.
Finance Commission moves that the sum of $1,731,623 be appropriated for health and human services purposes, of which $1,657,463 shall be raised and appropriated, and $74,160 shall be transferred from free cash. All sums voted for salaries are to be expended in conformance with the official budget of the Finance Commission unless otherwise voted by the town meeting. All sums voted for new equipment should be expended for items listed in the budgets approved by the Finance Commission and voted by the town meeting. As displayed in the budget book, restrictions by salaries totals, operating expenses totals, and capital expenses totals are explicitly incorporated into this vote. Details are on the next slide. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Slater, you're seconding. Mr. Fleming on the motion.
Finance Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this motion.
Thank you. And I do have a registered speaker on this one, Catherine Anger-Peer, and you're right by the mic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Catherine Anger-Peer, District 9. Ooh. So first, I want to highlight and make sure that the town and the body is aware of some of the great work that is being done by the Health Department on a daily basis, providing sharps containers and bike helmets at low cost, to conducting blood pressure clinics, and even providing CPR certification and free Narcan to residents. I think these are all fantastic programs. And I want more people to be able to take advantage of them and the other services that are provided by the Health Department, which is why outreach is so important. However, I have become aware of a concerning development, which is that the Health Department has decided to discontinue offering routine childhood vaccines, or specifically the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, or MMR vaccine. As you may be aware, over the past 16 months, there have been over 4,100 measles cases across the country. The actual count is probably a lot higher, and it is critical that a vast majority of the population be protected against measles to prevent outbreaks. Beginning last spring, the Health Department had MMR vaccine available for children. However, they advertised it as being available only for children without insurance or on Mass Health, seemingly excluding children with insurance. This is inaccurate, as this vaccine is provided free of cost through the Massachusetts Department of Public Health's Immunization Division, which states clearly on their website that, quote, MDPH universally provides routinely recommended pediatric vaccines to all children through 18 years of age, regardless of insurance status. This was information that I brought to the public health nurse at the second annual wellness fair that was on November 15th, but that information did not appear to be incorporated in future messaging. I wonder then if there were children who could have used this service and did not because they did not believe they were eligible. Publicly available data on the MDPH website shows that only 93% of 7th graders here at the Coakley Middle School have the required MMR doses for school entry. Now that's pretty good, especially when you look at other rates across the country, but it is lower than it is in previous years. And one, measles is very contagious, and it's recommended to have at least 95% of a population be protected in order to prevent outbreaks. And two, this shows that there are students who need these vaccines in our school. So why was the Health Department unable to find anyone to vaccinate over the course of the year? At the last Board of Health meeting on April 27th, the public health nurse noted that while vaccines are no longer available here in Norwood, residents can travel to Denham or Canton to be vaccinated. So through you, Madam Moderator, to the Health Director, can the Health Director ensure that there will be significant collaboration with these other towns, providing free access to routine and required vaccines to all Norwood students, regardless of their insurance status?
Ms. Lane? I'm not sure this really pertains to the budget, but we'll indulge.
It pertains to the services that the Board of Health and the Health Department provide.
Health Director? Yes, actually, Norwood has quite a long history of providing vaccinations, the Vaccine for Children program. I think we may have been one of the first towns since, I want to say, in the 1993, 1994, when it was implemented. We had a very robust immunization clinic. It's kind of waned over the years, unfortunately. Well, actually, it's a good thing, because back in the day when we used to have a very robust immunization clinic, like I said, it was because there were children without health insurance. And then they had Children's Medical Security Plan came around in the 90s, and now people, thankfully, are on health insurance. And so they are getting their vaccines in the medical home.
Mm-hmm.
So the Vaccine for Children program, unfortunately, we were removed from it last week. We have MMR in stock. We tried to offer it to the schools. The school nurses can only do so much. They tell the parents that you can come to the health department and get your MMR. But if the parents choose to go to their own physician, they go to their own physician or a public clinic. And your second question about, so we have a shared service arrangement with other towns. There are 2 towns that stock all the childhood vaccines. Anyone, because we're in a shared service arrangement, if someone needs those vaccines, they can travel to those towns. The reason we don't stock it in our refrigerator, like I said, we just had 10 doses of MMR. There's a shelf life to it. There's also a risk that if there's a power outage, we do have a generator. But if something happens over the weekend and we lose that vaccine, that we have to pay for it, it depends. There are instances that we don't have to pay for it. But we haven't had any requests for the vaccine. We offer it. The school nurses, we work very closely with the school nurses we have for numerous years. They know to call us if they need anything, so there just hasn't been the need, and people are getting the vaccines in their medical home.
Is there a follow-up?
So just to emphasize that, yes, the Vaccines for Children program is a great program for the uninsured and those on Mass Health. However, the state program is for everybody.
Yes.
And that communication did not appear to be communicated in the public health nurse's report that then ended up on Norwood Now. It was very focused on the kids who didn't have insurance, who presumably don't have a medical home, although we also full know with the hospital being down and everything else that's happening, lots of kids don't necessarily have that ready access. So I just want to ensure that there is collaboration with that shared service arrangement to ensure if you find out that there are kids who need those vaccines, that there's an easy way other than just saying, go drive to Canton and work with them.
Right, so we have never turned away any child for a vaccine. I think what she was doing, what she meant, and maybe it wasn't clear, is she was targeting a certain population. She was saying, is there anyone in there that doesn't have a doctor? Do you have a student that doesn't have a doctor, that doesn't have health insurance? And we were kind of, because we only had 10 doses, so we were going to, she was kind of just doing a little target population there. But no, we know that is for anyone under the age of 18, and that we would provide that. But unfortunately, we don't have that choice anymore because we're not, we were removed from the program last week. So, I don't know.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Anything further? Ms. Taylor?
Jane Farrar Taylor, District 8, sorry. I sat on the Board of Health for a number of years. Stacy, your department should be commended, and I don't think that had anything to do really with the budget. The budget is fine. I think you're doing an excellent job, and I just couldn't sit there and have any kind of a mock put on our Board of Health. We have one of the best Boards of Health that we have, and I don't mean this against you in any way, but it really bothered me, so I needed to get up and say it. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. All right, anything further? Seeing none, let's put this to a vote. Whoop, Mr. Garrity, can you get to a mic, please?
Jim Garrity, District 1. Stacy, can you come back up there for a second?
Or do you have a question for Ms. Lane?
I just want to say one thing. The Board of Health does a great job. Stacy, all of yous work good together. Catherine, when you get your facts straight, you ought to speak the truth, because you mentioned something about
All right.
a garbage disposal.
Mr. Garrity,
All right.
Mr. Garrity,
All right.
please sit down. You're out of order. All right.
I'm happy to not respond.
Please, let's keep it civil. Thank you. All right, we're going to put this to a vote. And again, please, town meeting members. All right. This is $1,731,623 for Health and Human Services. Let's open the vote. Voting is now open. Ten seconds. Let's close the vote. Motion carries 153 to 6. All right, that takes us to Article 6, Motion 5. Mr. Fleming.
Whoops. Am I on now? Okay. Finance Commission moves that the sum of $3,149,289 be appropriated for culture and recreation purposes, of which $3,014,415 shall be raised and appropriated, and $134,874 shall be transferred from free cash. All sums voted for salaries are to be expended in conformance with the official budget of the Finance Commission unless otherwise voted by the town meeting. All sums voted for new equipment shall be expended for items listed in the budgets approved by the Finance Commission and voted by the town meeting. As displayed in the budget book, restrictions by salaries totals, operating expenses totals, and capital expenses totals are explicitly incorporated to this vote. Detail is on the next slide.
All right, and Mr. Slater is seconded. Thank you. Mr. Fleming on the motion.
Finance Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this motion.
All righty. Anything on culture and recreation? Ms. Neil Rizzo?
Katie Neal Rizzo, District 2. I had a question about the closing of the Father Mac pool and how that affects the budget, and when it was discussed, I thought we were going to have some open forums about it, but I just saw a notice in the rec department guide that it was closed after the summer. So I'm wondering how that affects the budget in terms of how you're going to attract campers to a site without a pool or a cooling location, how you're going to accommodate swim lessons, swim safety classes, anything like that, through you.
Mr. Mizuko, I saw you taking the mic, and go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'll start and I'll defer to our rec director for any specifics. So this will be likely the last season for Father Max in its current iteration. The pool is aged, it is failing. It's usually not even open a real full season, even in a traditional year. We've really kind of reduced the use just by nature of the volume that's there, as well as ability to staff lifeguards, which we're barely able to staff lifeguards for two pools. So there is a capital appropriation next year to begin a study of what Father Max is going to become, whether it's a different pool or a spray park. But the last season of Father Max is likely going to be this year, at least in its current form. I'll defer to Sam for specific questions if you'd like about how we're going to rearrange things, but this will be likely the last year that Father Max is open.
Is there a follow-up, Ms. Neil Rizzo? Or actually, Mr. White?
Yeah, I was just curious about the funding, the effects on the funding.
Sure, you'll see some revenues go down and some expenses go down when the pool is finally not operational.
Okay, so then through you, Madam Moderator, so we'll be revisiting this next year before final decisions are made, what the next iteration will be?
Mr. Mizuko?
Yeah, yes, it's on the capital plan to be addressed.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, thank you. Ms. Churchill?
District 5, I have a CapEx question for the Recreation Department on line 462 for site improvements. I was wondering if the Ivets Tennis Courts is under the FY25 or this proposed for FY26, 26, or the proposed for FY27 just for completion of that project, and when it's anticipated that the rec tennis program will recommence using those courts and when they would reopen. I'm just not sure if it's under 26 or 27. Thank you.
All right, we'll have Mr. White, the Recreation Director, answer that one, who just celebrated his birthday, by the way.
Right, gotta say it again. Sam White, Director of Recreation. That's a great question. The Ivets Tennis Courts, actually, they just got painted just the other day, so we are going to be installing the nets in the next few days here, and they'll be open for use for the public.
Great.
Is there a
just
follow-up,
to-
Ms. Churchill?
Just to be clear, that's not included in the 27 budget because it was covered in 26?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
James Stewart, District 7. I went to the Haas Pool. I took my family there a couple of times last year. For my parents, my kids, and my wife, it was like $30. That's kind of expensive. I mean, I kind of live on a fixed income. And the Father Max Pool was a nice place to go to. And I think we need to realize that we want to protect the young and the old, the citizens of this town, and the future and the people that built it. And when you price people out of having a good time in the summer, or when you're increasing taxes because of whatever your budget says, I think we need to realize who we want in this town and what we want to be, because not everybody can afford it. And the middle class is really paying for it, because if you have the money, you go, and if you don't, you don't. And then, I mean, I don't know. Like, I love Norwood and I choose to live here, but I want to stay here. I don't want to choose to leave. And that's why I stayed here. But maybe not for long.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Think
Stewart.
about the future.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. All right, Ms. Taylor? Mr. White, why don't you stay up there? There might be another
District
question.
8, Jean Taylor. Under playground maintenance, is the playground at the airport part of that?
Yes, that's correct, as it is a town playground, so all 9 playgrounds in town are under that line.
Okay.
Which the playground, the
Hopefully
airport.
I'm not out of order asking the question, because it would involve that, and it would involve money, or I know that there are issues down there with there not being a rest area, because I know it's a real issue for one of the restaurant that is down, there's only one restaurant down there, and it is a real issue for them, because they have, they have a restroom, but it's the restroom for their restaurant, and they have had problems that, things have been flushed down, so
Thank
they've
you.
had to put a sign out. Is it possible that somewhere in the budget, or that we have the rest area, we have a bathroom, I think, in our building down at the airport, that could either be used by the families at the playground. I don't like porta potties, but that would be the only other issue. But I think it's an issue that needs to be taken care of. Whatever it would be is going to have something to do with money. So could that please be looked at?
All right. Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
Yeah.
Mr. White is agreeing. Ms. Mankiewicz?
Ms. Makowitz, District 7, I realize there is not a clock in here, but is Madam Moderator aware of the time?
I am. There is a clock in here, and I'm looking right at it. It's 9:49.
Where is it? Where is it?
So I am very aware of the time. Thank you, Ms. Mankiewicz. All right, we're going to put this to a vote because I'm seeing none. And Ms. Mankiewicz is getting hangry, I think. All right. So $3,149,289 for culture and recreation. Let's open the vote.
Yeah, and he said go to the airport commission. Can I turn this on and say that?
10 seconds. Let's close the vote. Motion carries 147 to 11. All right, that takes us to Article 6, Motion 6, Facilities. Mr. Fleming.
Finance Commission moves that the sum of $9,730,361 be appropriated for shared costs facilities purposes, of which $9,313,641 shall be raised and appropriated, and $416,720 shall be transferred from free cash.
And Mr.
All-
Slater is, go ahead.
Hold on. All sums voted for salaries are to be expended in conformance with the official budget of the Finance Commission unless otherwise voted by the town meeting. All sums voted for new equipment shall be expended for items listed in the budgets approved by the Finance Commission and voted by the town meeting. As displayed in the budget book, restrictions by salaries totals, operating expenses totals, and capital expenses totals are explicitly incorporated into this vote. Details are on the next slide.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fleming, and detail, it's right here.
Yep.
And Mr. Slater is second. On the motion, Mr. Fleming.
Finance Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this motion.
All right. Anything on the motion? Seeing no hands raised, let's put it to a vote. This is to fund facilities, shared costs, $9,730,361. Voting is now open. Ten seconds. Let's close the vote. Motion carries 151 to 7. All right, that takes us to Article 6, Motion 7. Mr. Fleming.
Finance Commission moves that the sum of $48,921,985 be appropriated for shared cost purposes, of which $46,826,812 shall be raised and appropriated, and $2,095,172 shall be transferred from free cash. All sums voted for salaries shall be expended in conformance with the official budget of the Finance Commission unless otherwise voted by the town meeting. All sums voted for new equipment shall be expended for items listed in the budgets approved by the Finance Commission and voted by the town meeting. As displayed in the budget book, restrictions by salaries totals, operating expenses totals, and capital expenses totals are explicitly incorporated into this vote. Details on the next slide.
All right, and Mr. Slater, you're seconding? Mr. Fleming on the motion.
Finance Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this motion.
All right, shared costs. Anything from the body? Mr. Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ed Lynch, District 7. Number 951, Reserve Fund. What's that reserve for?
Mr. Fleming?
Thank you. The Finance Commission has a reserve fund, which is this $150 that the Finance Commission may use to appropriate funds if there's some kind of emergency comes up and we don't have time to call a town meeting because of an expense that we need to pay right away.
Thank you.
All right, anything further on shared costs? Mr. Orfanos, you getting up? Okay.
Greg Orfanos, District 9. On the debt service,
How much of the debt service can be paid off early? This is loans or bonds paid for different various things, anything from schools to other water department, whatever it could be. So how much of the debt service, we spend $12,500,000 a year this next year on debt service. How much of that can be paid off so we don't have that high of a debt service?
Mr. Fleming?
Well, in general, if you want to pay off a bond early, you would have to come up with the money to pay off the remaining balance, which would be a lot more than the $12.5 million. Whether you can do that or not is going to depend on the terms of the specific bond issue, and I think perhaps Jeff O'Neill could speak to that.
Mr. O'Neill, would you like to follow on?
Yeah, sure. Jeff O'Neill, Director of Finance, Town Accountant. So I don't have the exact number in front of me, but as Mr. Fleming was saying, it would be a large sum of money to pay off for a small annual savings. In general, you have a 10-year call period on a lot of these bonds. So it takes 10 years before you can try to even look to mature or pay those off. Norwood has done a very good job of refinancing those over the years. So even if we were to look what's paying off, those bonds that are older are at very favorable interest rates. So in the 1.5% to 2% range. So it really doesn't make sense to pay those off because if we leave the money in the bank, we're earning 3.5%, 3.75%. So it's not the prudent decision to drain your liquidity and use your free cash to pay off that debt. It's not a smart financial decision at this time. It is something we look at every year. We look at the possibility of refinancing, and if there ever was a time where it did make sense, we'd bring that to the town meeting.
Madam Moderator, can I have a follow-up?
Go ahead, Mr. Alfanos.
Thank you. For instance, the high school, $10 million still left on the high school. That would save us $1.6 million a year for the next 8 years, which is about the size of the override request we're going to have here soon, and other items like that. So you're saying we have free cash over the last 10 years of about $111 million. So and there's a lot in.
Sorry, $111 million in free cash. No, that is not right. I'm not sure where you're getting that number.
It's there. Trust me. I can show it to you.
Okay.
I can send
I'll
it to you.
trust you.
Trust me, it's there.
I do the finances,
It's
but I'll trust you,
111.
sir.
Well, it's 80 million just in the book for 5 years. So over the years, there's been that much free cash. So the question then becomes is that, are we going to put ourselves in a stronger position from a cash flow point of view? We all certainly get it's better to pay 3% than 6%. We get it. But, because our debt line is now third on the list on the chart that you had up. On the chart that was up there, it was third on the list for debt service. It was one of the larger items right after health insurance. So, I guess my suggestion would be in the future here, if we do come into more free cash, maybe we consider taking the smaller ones that we have and maybe freeing up some debt service.
Mr. O'Neill, would you like to respond?
Yeah, again, we'll look at it on an annual basis and take that under advisement, but I do want to just double check, and I'd be glad to sit down with you, but that free cash number that you're throwing around is not correct.
All right, we'll have to show it to you then.
That's
you
fine.
can talk about it in the fall.
That's fine.
So.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? Yes, Mr. Hopker.
Francis Hopcroft, District 1. I noticed in the budget book that the total for this account is 61,000, not 48. In fact, the 48 plus the 12.5 on the debt service comes out to what's in the book. Why is debt service there? And I think just adding those up quickly, they're not going to add up to 48. They're going to add up closer to 61. How much are we actually appropriating?
Mr. O'Neill?
Accountant. So this is one that we did have the same question last year. So if you look at Article 6, Motion 7, the 48 million, there's a footnote down the bottom of the 3 million, plus an amount for abatement, plus an amount for a library offset. That's roughly $3.6 million, 3.7. And then you have to add facilities into it. So that's the whole shared services. So it's the previous motion as well. So facilities plus shared costs plus the footnote will equal that $61 million number. It was confusing 2 years ago, and so I put that note in the bottom to try to alleviate that concern, because the numbers don't add up if you do the math like you just said.
What page is that note on, please?
It's on the,
On the screen.
It's right up on the screen, Mr. Hopker. The footnote right on the screen.
I see the footnote on the screen.
Mr. O'Neill, would you mind reading the footnote?
Sure. State and county assessments, $3,044,404. The property tax overlay for abatements and exemptions, $500,000. And the state offset for library aid, $84,278, are mandatory charges that must be funded through the tax levy. These amounts are not subject to town meeting appropriation and are accounted for separately in the total tax rate calculation.
So are they appropriated somewhere, Madam Moderator?
Mr. Hopker?
Are they appropriated somewhere else?
They're appropriated from the tax levy, but town meeting doesn't have to approve it. It's simple language. It's mandatory state law.
One more, if I could. Where's that money coming out of? Is that free cash, or is that
Comes out of the tax levy.
from the levy?
Yeah, from the levy. Mr. Connolly? All right, the question's been moved. Do I have a second? All right, Mrs. Sullivan is seconded. There's no debate on moving the question. 2/3 majority. I'm going to do a voice vote on this. All those in favor of moving the question say aye. All those opposed say no. The question has been moved. That takes us to Article 6, Motion 7 on shared costs for $48,921,985. Let's open the vote. Ten seconds. Let's close the vote. Motion passes 150 to 8. All right, looking at the time and knowing that we have the school budget ahead of us, which is one of the largest items that we'll be approving, I am going to entertain a motion to recess till Thursday at 6:30, same place. Mr. Connolly. Do I have a second? Mr. Hearn. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Thank you, everybody.